evening. We'll call to order this Tuesday, April 28th meeting of the Fairfield Plan and Zoning Commission. Commissioner Levy is not with us this evening, so Commissioner Churchill will be sitting in his place, and at least until Commissioner Braun arrives. Yes, we can, well, I guess for the minutes, we can.
She's gonna be 5 minutes late. I'm
Okay.
just seeing where she is.
Okay. So we'll just proceed with 6 for now.
I wish she had comments on the minutes.
What?
Hi, how far are you? She's on Reef Road. Do you want to wait or do you want
We can, if she has comments on the
to?
minutes, we
She'd
can,
appreciate it if you would.
we can come back to minutes. We'll start with the next
I
item.
think you should wait for her. It'll be 2 minutes and she'll be in 1 minute.
Okay, we're gonna proceed.
2 minutes from now.
I'll put you on
Unless she wants to
speaker so
join,
you can
okay.
Join here.
Commissioner Braun, can you hear us?
Pardon me?
I said, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
All right, we will start with meeting minutes from April 14th. Can I please have a motion on the item?
I'll move it.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, correct.
Commissioner Braun moves to approve. Can I have a second? Commissioner Randolph seconds. Commissioner Braun, go ahead.
No comments. They seem accurate.
Thank you, Commissioner Randolph. Nothing else. Thank you. Any additional comments? All those in favor of the motion to approve the April 14th minutes, please raise your hand. Or say aye.
I'm raising my hand.
Thank you.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next is 1073 North Benson Road, a request by Fairfield University to return 100% of the bond in the amount of $13,925 as recommended by the engineering department. Can I please have a motion on the item? Posey.
Motion to approve as recommended by the engineering department.
Thank you. Commissioner Capozzi moves to approve the request. Can I have a second? Commissioner Monahan seconds. Commissioner Capozzi.
No further comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Monahan. Any comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion to approve the request, please raise your hand or say aye. Commissioner Braun.
Commissioner Braun, did you vote? Commissioner Braun? Commissioner Braun?
Folks walking in.
Thanks. Was that a yes on that?
Also, yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. 338 Commerce Drive, a request by Belize Hyundai to release 100% of bond via letter of credit in the amount of $237,550 as recommended by the engineering department. Can I have a motion on the item? Commissioner Capozzi.
Motion to approve as recommended by the engineering department.
Commissioner Capozzi moves to approve. Can I have a second, please? Commissioner Delgado seconds. Commissioner Capozzi.
No further comments.
Commissioner Delgado. Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. We have one application to recommend to a public hearing tonight, 354 Pequot Avenue, a zoning map change request by Jalif Manufacturing Corporation from designed industrial to design commercial district, and a compliance review for the expansion of antique store use in a designed industrial district zone. Can I please have a motion on the item, Commissioner Capozzi?
Motion to move to public hearing.
Commissioner Capozzi moves to recommend to public hearing. Can I have a second? Commissioner Randolph seconds. Hearing is required. Anything further? Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion to recommend to public hearing, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Sign compliance applications, 1719 Post Road, a sign compliance application of St. Thomas Church for their church building in a center designed district zone. I have a motion, please. Commissioner Randolph. Commissioner Randolph moves to approve. Do I have a second? Commissioner Posey seconds. Commissioner Randolph.
The sign seems to be in keeping with the character of the building, thoughtfully done. I don't see, do we know what materials it's made out of?
Oh, Commissioner Levy's on?
It's in the packet.
I believe it's just wood that's etched and then painted.
Okay. So it's not just flat metal?
No, it's wood,
Okay.
is our
It looks
understanding.
like it, but, and just generally speaking, when we get signage packages, don't they usually provide more detail than this typically?
It really depends on the application. This is obviously a pre-existing building where they're just adding additional signage where none was previously approved. So as long as it meets the, the calculation requirement and limitation for the elevation, then it is required to be approved as a compliance by this commission, but we don't usually get into more detail, especially in this case where there's no additional lighting, it's not electrical as part of it, it's really just affixed to the face of the building.
No further questions.
Commissioner Posey.
No further questions or comments.
Questions or comments from the commission? All those in favor of the motion to approve sign request, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next is 1916 Post Road, a sign compliance application of Needs Bakery for the approved bakery and design commercial district zone. Please have Commissioner Capozzi.
Motion to approve. I love Needs Bakery and I'm very excited they're coming to Fairfield.
So we're having trouble hearing.
I said I
Motion
love
was
Needs.
to
Bakery.
approve.
Yeah.
And then he said he likes the sign. He likes the bakery. Commissioner Capozzi moves to approve. Do I have a second? Commissioner Delgado seconds. Commissioner Delgado.
Excited that they're coming. I mean, the sign is, it's a nice looking sign. It seems to be in compliance. So vote to approve.
Thank you. Any other? Commissioner Braun?
Can I just confirm that this complies with all of our sign dimension and requirements? And this doesn't have any neon or anything like that? It's not lit up?
No, the signage is really located on the awning. And they just really have to get this approved because this was originally 2 tenant spaces and the entire building is being taken by this tenant. So they just had to submit something.
We already approved the expansion of Needs Bakery, as I recall.
That's correct. Yes.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Monahan, did you have a question? Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have coastal site plan applications and Mr. Mullen will come up to read recommendations for those. First is 154 East Lawn Street, a coastal site plan application of IC Contracting LLC to demolish an existing single-family residence and construct a new 2.5-story FEMA compliant single-family residence in a residence B zone.
Okay.
Yeah, wait, I think the, any staff recommendations, if you could.
Okay. I'll start with the first one on the agenda, which is 145 East Lawn. Staff recommendations are as follows. Staff recommends the following conditions in approving this coastal area management plan project. Number 1, soil erosion and sedimentation control shall be installed and maintained during the entirety of the construction project at the subject site. Number 2, the applicant provides drainage for the proposed patio. Number 3, the applicant revises the plans to provide details of floodproofing precautions for the elevator, which are required by FEMA and specified in an NFIP technical bulletin 4 elevator entitled elevator installation for buildings located in special flood hazard areas in accordance with the National Flood Insurance Program.
Mr. Mullen, can I have a motion on the item, please? Commissioner Braun,
Motion to approve.
with the staff recommendations.
Yes, with the staff recommendation.
Commissioner Braun moves to approve with staff recommendations. Is there a second? Randolph seconds. Commissioner Braun.
And just to clarify, the DEP letter has been complied with already. Some
It hasn't been complied with, but the conditions are reflected in the staff recommendations.
Commissioner Randolph,
Nothing further.
any other comments from the commission? Commissioner Monahan?
It's great to see that someone's putting an elevator into their plan before construction, given more and more homes after the fact in the beach area are asking for, how do I install an elevator? So it's great to see that that plan's being approved and looked at ahead of construction versus.
We're starting to see that a lot more in a lot of these tear down and rebuilds.
Yeah, it's important.
Thank you. Other comments? All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve with staff recommendations, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next is, let me call it first. Next is 121 Longdean Road, an application of J2 Design LLC for a coastal site plan review for a demolition of an existing single-family house and construction of a FEMA-compliant single-family house in a Residence B zone.
Okay, staff recommends the following conditions in approving this coastal area management project. Number one, soil erosion and sedimentation controls shall be installed and maintained during the entirety of the construction of the project at the subject site.
Okay, Mr. Mullen, have a motion on the item. Mr. Braun?
Motion to approve with the conditions mentioned by staff.
Thank you. Braun moves to approve the staff recommendations. Do I have a second? Commissioner Capozzi seconds. Commissioner Braun?
The DEP letter actually says that this will actually bring the house more into compliance with FEMA type regulations. And it does add around 500 feet of impervious or 500 feet of coverage, but it seems far away from any tidal wetland.
It is
It's at least one street away. if not-
It is, it's approximately 130 feet away from the tidal wetland, but it's across a street and a lot.
Thank you.
And with the ENS controls in place, the coastal resource should be adequately protected.
Thank you.
Commissioner Capozzi?
And no further comments.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion to approve with staff recommendations, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously. And next is 43 Helen Street, an application of 43 Helen Street LLC for a coastal site plan review for demolition of an existing deck and shed and construction of second-story dormers in a Residence B zone. Mullen.
Staff recommends the following conditions in approving this coastal area management plan project. One, soil erosion and sedimentation controls shall all be included on the site plan and installed and maintained during the entirety of the construction project at the subject site.
Thank you. Have a motion on the item, please. Commissioner Randolph.
Move to approve with the staff recommendations.
Thank you. Commissioner Randolph moves to approve the staff recommendations. Can I have a second? Commissioner Capozzi seconds. Commissioner Randolph.
No further comments.
Commissioner Capozzi.
And further comments.
Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion to approve with staff recommendations, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next is 38 Lighthouse Point, an application of Lighthouse Point LLC for a coastal site plan review for demolition of an existing single-family house and construction of a FEMA-compliant single-family house in a beach district zone. Mr. Mullen.
Staff recommends the following conditions in approving this coastal area management plan project. Soil erosion and sedimentation controls shall be installed and maintained during the entirety of the construction project at the subject site.
Can I have a motion on the item, please? Commissioner Capozzi.
Motion to approve with staff recommendations.
Thank you. Commissioner Capozzi moves to approve the staff recommendations. Can I have a second? Commissioner Randolph seconds. Commissioner Capozzi.
No further comments.
Commissioner Randolph.
No comments.
Any other comments?
How will that-
Commissioner Monahan.
how will that affect the neighboring properties with the home at this elevation? Are there any sightline issues or anything?
It's a very tightly packed neighborhood. This house is on a Lighthouse Point is, it is very dense and it's in between, well, there's a parking lot next door to the, what would be the north of the project. And then to the south, there's another set of houses that are there. It's tightly packed in, so nobody's really looking over anybody else. They're all kind of just in there. This will bring the house up in compliance with the FEMA regulations and the other houses around it, because there are FEMA compliant houses around it.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just speak to that really quickly. As we tell property owners who want to redevelop in the beach area, the only view protection there is buying on the water. So
What? I'm sorry.
view protection is really just buying direct on waterfront. We don't have anything within our regulations that require, readjusting where the structure is located, except in compliance with the setback requirements.
Is this increasing the height? How much is it increasing the height? It's a 2-story, 3-bedroom.
So right now we have a two-story, 4-bedroom, non-elevated, single-family house. And we are gonna be doing a new 2-story, 3-bedroom, single-family house. It's 2 stories with an attic that's less than 7 feet, so it doesn't count as a story. So we are going it's in the VE 13 zone. So it will increase the height of the building. But it will,
Elevation amount.
yeah, because the way the flood zones fall on this slide, it's actually half in the AE, well, not half, it's actually more in the AE zone than it is in the VE zone, but the house itself will be touching the corner of the VE zone, and according to our regulations, the stricter of the two apply. So therefore, it has to be elevated to the higher elevation to accommodate the VE velocity flood zone standards. Yes, Mr. Randolph.
So I'm just looking at the third floor plan. I see that the elevation, as you said, yeah, it's 6'10"
Give me 1 second.
on I think the second sheet. On A2 shows the height.
All my folders, it's one.
It's Lighthouse Point 38 revised architectural plans.
What page?
It's on A2, shows the height
Yep.
as 6'10". And then the floor plans show the preceding page. There's a bathroom up there and there's 3 rooms labeled as storage rooms.
Yes.
I guess because as you're saying, the height.
The height makes it such that because if you look at on page 3, I believe, sheet A2, and you look, in order to be a floor, you have to be 7 feet.
Right.
They have the floor to the top of plate is 6'10".
Right.
So that is finished attic space with
Right.
storage and a bathroom.
And so what prevents, do we have any ordinance that would prevent that from becoming additional bedrooms?
It's, if I may, Mr. Chair, it's prevented by the building code. So bedrooms have to be a minimum height of 7 feet. So they would not be compliant with the building code should they, after we walk away and issue a CO, convert it to a bedroom. It should not, if they turn around and sell it, it can't legally be marketed as a bedroom because it doesn't meet the building code.
Understood, but do we currently have any mechanism, because we know this is a popular beach area and downstairs there's a lot of bathrooms. This house has a lot of bathrooms in it, so do we have any mechanism to prevent storage 1, 2, and 3 from being rented out as bedrooms?
The building code only permits, do sometimes things happen when we walk away from both our inspections and the building department? Sometimes, yes. but not legally. So, I mean, I guess if for this particular application, there is a notice of filing that has to be recorded on the land record. So if you want to add a specific condition that indicates that the third floor cannot be used for bedroom, that would be acceptable and appropriate. But it is reinforced by the building code.
Yeah, so upon additional information, is it permissible for us to add that to the land record?
Sure. I mean, it's redundant to the building code, but sure.
Right. Okay, and is there, does staff have any other recommendations to prevent this? Because it's, cascades with parking issues. I don't know if you have any other recommendations.
No, well, I mean, that would be what I would say is the condition would be that the third floor is not to be used for living areas. Well, it is, they have a bathroom.
Bedrooms, I think you would have to say.
Bedrooms Should not be used for
bedrooms or-
bedrooms.
Yes.
And then it would be recorded not only in the land records, but then we'd have it in our permitting system. The third floor was not to be used for bedrooms, so it would be visible in several places. Like Director Harrigan said, stop it. What happens after we do our jobs and people decide to do the wrong thing? No, we can't stop that, but if they do try and sell, when they try and sell it, that's.
I don't know if our
zoning-
if our zoning enforcement officer wants to speak to that either, but.
I think that's the whole thing.
So third floor, I think there was a concern for this structure on Lighthouse Point. How
Always
do
a
we,
concern.
how do we prevent it from being a bedroom?
I prevent it.
Okay, that's what I said.
So the building code requires any space that has a bedroom where 50% of that area has to be greater than 7 feet in height. And the way that we police the third floor in the beach district is we measure to the rough framing, and that doesn't include the collar tie. That measures from the ridge beam down the rafters to where it hits the attic deck, and none of that space can be higher than 7 feet. Can't even be 7 feet. It's got to be 6'11" and change. And we measure it, and you can't change it after it's framed. And there's no way to, and then you can't incorporate a bedroom in that space either. Now, if they put a bedroom there, that's illegal. But after the fact, we usually catch it when the health department does an inspection. Because most of these units are rentals, and they'll go out and do an inspection, and they'll see that, there's a bed in there, and then I'll get a call.
So Commissioner Randolph, are you proposing to amend the motion to add that as a condition as well?
Yes, that would be, I would request that we amend that, make that amendment.
Commissioner Capozzi, you good with that?
Sure.
Commissioner Braun?
I have a question that might be related. In the DEP letter, it does find that it's consistent, but it does say the proposed toilet and sink on the upper floor raise a concern that utilities may be installed in the building. What do they mean by that? Is that in the attic they're talking about? By upper floor,
Likely to be.
Might be installed in.
Well, I can
I mean,
answer
in
that
the-
also if you'd like.
I don't know what they mean. Are they concerned that,
Mr. Decker.
Well, bathrooms are permitted in the third floor.
Third floor is the
It's not-
attic, right?
It's the attic space, even though it's not, we can call it finished storage, because that's the only title it can be, but a bathroom is only required to have a head height of 6'8" for it to be considered legal, under the building code. And we have a number of structures on Fairfield Beach Road, or even in any area, that has a bathroom on the third floor, regardless of whether or not it's considered habitable space or not. So bathrooms are permitted. So plumbing does typically go to the third floor because they put it up there.
Other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve with the staff recommendations and the additional condition,
could you restate, Commissioner Randolph's condition?
Commissioner Randolph's condition that language be added specifying that their third floor space shall not be used as bedroom.
And recorded on the land record, right?
All those in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. I'm sorry, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. That motion passes unanimously. The next one I am recusing myself on, as I know the applicant, so I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner Randolph and Commissioner Huntley can stand in on this one for me.
Okay, 383 South Benson Road, application of Joseph Gorham for local site plan review for demolition of the existing garage. Construction of a FEMA compliant 2-car garage with office space on the second floor residential zone. Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second? Yeah, Commissioner Brown. Composing, any comments?
No, no additional comments other than staff
Oh,
recommendation.
I'm sorry, staff.
Staff recommends the following conditions in approving this coastal area management project. Number one, soil erosion and sedimentation control shall be included on the site plan and installed and maintained during the entirety of the construction project that's the subject site. Number two, any utilities must be elevated to above base flood elevation of 11 feet.
Commissioner Brown?
I just want to clarify something I said. I was reading this application when I said that. So this one has the utilities in the third floor. Is that
So-
also an attic?
So what this was is, they're gonna be, this isn't a house, this isn't for the main structure, this is for the garage, that the existing one in the picture is gonna be torn down. They got a variance through the zoning board of appeals to, for
Coverage and setbacks.
coverage and setbacks, and also in the second floor will be living space, however, will not be an accessory apartment, and there'll be office and recreation space above the garage. So, that's what and when I spoke actually directly with Mr. Oliver, who wrote this, he was just wondering what it was gonna be, whether that was gonna be living space or not. We told him that it had already been reviewed, through the zoning board of appeals process, and that you can have office space above, a garage.
And it's not an ADU because there's no kitchen, I assume, or the
kitchen.
square footage?
Can I ask a question? What was the thinking about not allowing ADUs in the beach area? Like if this was if somebody wanted to build this into an accessory dwelling unit, is that, I know that was probably discussed in years past. I'm just wondering, I know they're not allowed, or they have to be attached in order to be, like, what's the thinking behind that?
May I answer that, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Mr. Acting Chair. So when the commission actually revised their ADU requirements in consultation with the Affordable Housing Committee, the commission at the time decided to kind of do a modest expansion of the ADU requirements with detached ADUs in our largest lot zones first. So they're allowed in the AAA, the AA, and the R3 zone. But they are required to be attached in our smaller lot zones. So the residential A, residential B, residential C, if there's only a single family home, and in the R2 district. I think that the Affordable Housing Committee would like to come back to discuss detached ADUs in other districts, because we've had several applications before the Zoning Board of Appeals to allow that. I do think that in the Beach District, because of the narrowness of Fairfield Beach Road, ADUs are not permitted right now. But in the flood zone, in the residential A zone, and the residential B zone, ADUs are permitted, but right now they have to be attached.
I have just a follow-up question on that. I always thought it was because, so students can live there, but students can live there anyway. The ADU doesn't really change. Does the ADU change the utility usage or capacity?
No, ADUs, you're required to have an owner live on site. So the owner can choose to live in the main house, or they can choose to live in the ADU and then rent out the main house. The choice is theirs, but an owner has to occupy on site in one of those scenarios. So that's really the limitation. So you can't, if you've got a duplex, that's fine. You can rent out an entire duplex, but if you're building an ADU, an owner has to live on the main structure or the accessory portion. That's really the intention of the ADU reg.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Capozzi, you, is your motion?
Motion to approve with staff comment. Staff recommendations, rather.
Commissioner Braun, seconded. Okay. Should we put this to vote? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Randolph.
Can I ask a question?
Please, go ahead.
So is this a planning meeting or is this a regular meeting?
A regular meeting.
So we have a lot of planning items on the regular meeting agenda. And I think it's confusing to the public. And I sent an email in asking, and I understand that, this was kind of, but then I went back and looked at, other commissions, and it's definitely noted. And so we have what I believe is another meeting every month where we have a merged agenda. We have a regular meeting and planning items on it, where they really should be delineated for us and also for members of the public, so they know what they're actually looking at. So is there a reason that the agenda items always include planning as well as regular meeting items? Like what is the difference in your opinion of a planning meeting and a regular meeting?
Planning can happen at any meeting. Prior to us having dedicated planning meetings, they happened in regular meetings. The additional dedicated planning meetings were added so that if we have a high volume of applications, as we did for the last year, where I think we met, 50 plus times, largely to respond to applications that were before us, at minimum, we have that time. So this commission, I fully expect to continue to address planning items during regular meetings as well.
Can these strictly planning meetings be noted as such?
I don't think that's appropriate because I think that
Planning.
implies that items will only be discussed at planning meetings, which is not the case. And I think that creates other confusion.
So it's really, everything's discussed and we've just added one more meeting for everything.
Yes.
Yeah, that was never discussed when we
It
added
was.
the additional item.
It was discussed.
I do see a difference between doing regulation text amendments or zone changes, which is what we're in our planning hat, when it's associated with a development application versus when it's initiated by the commission. To me, the ones that we initiate should only be in a planning meeting because they don't have deadlines. It's not associated with any individual asking for development activity. So I do feel like we should confine strictly planning. We're wearing only our planning hats. We're not responding to an applicant. I think that should be confined to the planning meeting, where we have more time to discuss and seek adequate information. And that's not what's happening.
That's not. Commissioner Capozzi.
I feel like there's two things being conflated here. The first is if in a planning meeting, we raise an issue that is subject to public comment and requires multiple meetings before we vote, then I feel that it's appropriate for that to be voted on in a so-called regular meeting. And I also feel like, I may use a crude analogy, this is like, sending out a plane that's half full, because that's what's scheduled when we can move items around to allow for more full discussion or in a variety of meetings, rather than jamming everything into one meeting and then having another meeting go out that's not even at capacity for the time period allotted.
Commissioner Braun.
Also, in terms of how we prioritize our planning items, the ones we initiate, I'm not talking about ones that are associated with a development application, because those do have deadlines and individuals' rights. But I feel like we're prioritizing things that are not absolutely necessary, and we're deprioritizing things like the parking, I call it the 15-unit parking ban reservation areas, known as mitigation areas. We don't even have time when it's necessarily going to be discussed. And now we're hearing that the town attorney might finally talk to us about something related to the housing law, but it would be in a private executive session and sometime in May. That's a little late, since the things that we're worried about will go into effect on July 1st. And also, I object to us having a private executive session with counsel on interpreting a state law, especially when my understanding is there's reference in the town attorney's opinion that refers to the Office of Legislative Research, an official publication, also interpreting that state law. So I don't believe that we should have the town attorney giving us interpretations of state law in a closed executive session. But that's a separate issue from what I was saying to begin with, which is a very high priority, which I've been saying, and Commissioner Monahan has been saying since January, is to figure out what areas of our town we're going to preserve from that 15-unit parking ban that will go into effect by the housing law on July 1st. And can we have a consensus that this will be definitely added to next week's planning agenda?
But we've been asking for it for months and it's never added.
And we need research for that. And I've asked for research as well. I don't know if we've had
Lots of
research.
items continue to be added to the agenda, but not the ones we're asking to be added. And being told it will be on the next planning session, and it's never on the next planning session.
And then we have things like the pool ban on the planning session or the fence restriction on the planning session, like that. Those are things that we don't really have to do at all. And they don't have to be done now, and they seem to be shoved in to a regular agenda as opposed to, we should be having discussion tonight about how we're going to preserve parking where it should be done. How we're going to determine what the most beneficial area is to preserve parking rights in our town.
And fences and walls have been multiple times on the agenda. And I know tonight we're not going to be hearing that because Mr. Levy is ill, but that's
Has
something
that been
that.
decided yet, the fences?
Discussed.
Not the proposed language by Commissioner Libby, Commissioner Randolph.
Just a question for staff. Could you clarify, and you don't have to do it now, but you might know this off the top of your head. According to Connecticut general statutes, are there any regulations? This is a two-part question. Are there any regulations on when zoning and planning need to be discussed, whether, because I know some municipalities have separate planning and zoning commissions. Is there any regulation according to CSG that we have to discuss those things separately? That's first part of my question. And the second part of the question is, could you just run through the notice procedures for items being added to the meeting, the notice time, and when things are discussed, and how long we have to run through things, because there doesn't seem to be a common understanding of those Connecticut general statute regulations. I know it's a pop quiz for you guys, but.
No, I mean, I think that might be,
You can come back if you don't have the answer.
yeah, no, I mean, so we do notice when we are contemplating a revision to regulations. There's not the same timeline, obviously, for the commission because you're not an applicant in the same way. So you're not beholden to the same statutory limitations in terms of how long you take to process a change to your own regulations. But you know, what I would say is that we just spent the last year with a very aggressive schedule with projects that we had no control over the timeline, right? The timelines were dictated by state statute. With 830G projects that we couldn't control. The reason why, in my understanding, we've gone with 3 meetings a month is to be able to very intentionally and actively revise our regulations so we are pointing to where we want future development, because we know that future development will include housing, so that we defer some of the 830G demand and we're actually taking local control in terms of where we want these types of projects to be landed. So I think that means that we shouldn't act on this type of work slowly. We really should, given the 7 years that we've been talking about this, very pointedly within the POCD process, move forward with regulations that we know that we've adopted within our POCD and we want to see come to fruition within the regulations themselves. I do think that we're on a good track for the conservation parking mitigation districts, that John has done some good work in developing the zoning maps. That is on the agenda for the next meeting to be able to talk through some of that. But in building an agenda, as you can see, there were a lot of items on tonight's agenda, and we don't really know how much time each of those items may take. So I have to balance the requirements of applicant driven requests and what we want to finalize in terms of the business that we've already started discussing and how to balance that agenda to agenda. And I consult with the chair as is proper, as most boards and commissions do, in terms of how much we want to try to stack in one night. And we do the best that we can to make sure that that's balanced within the time frame that we have available within that meeting period. Sometimes we move a little faster than we expect. Sometimes we move a little slower. So we do the best to balance an agenda appropriately.
Commissioner Braun.
Okay, so regarding notices, I know other towns, because I've done work in other towns, they publish the notices. We don't publish the public notices, do we, of the hearing?
We do.
I don't see, where are they published? Are they on the website?
Citizen.
Oh, no, I mean published in the websites, posted, I should have said.
The agendas are posted via the town clerk's page. So all of the boards and commissions have their own individual pages with agendas, minutes, and then in our case, recording of the meeting.
I'm talking about public notices that are published in the paper. Are they posted to our webpage so people can find what the notice said? Because I can't find it.
No.
Okay, we should. I believe we should. They should be scanned in. I've seen that in many other towns. Because I have no idea, for example, with the swimming pool restriction, which is coming up next on our agenda. I don't have any information on our website of what the original one was. I only see the alternate version. I don't even know do we have an original one that said it was a ban, and now that has been changed, and now we have an alternate version where we're suggesting it could be an exception, a special exception for swimming pools in the coastal area. Like, is the original, do we have the language of the proposed regulation as part of that public notice?
Yes, it was originally noticed in.
Sometime in January, because January is when we started
originally
talking.
discussed. Yes, it was noticed.
So I think that's a legal matter that we should have. We should know what the notice said, because I have a concern that tonight, if we're gonna be talking about that, we're changing it, and we might be changing it too much from what was noticed, and that's to me improper. So I would like to see all notices, especially when we initiate our own text amendment, to be posted to the website. It's really part of the file. It's part of the legal file.
Commissioner Randolph. Again, question back to staff. It's my understanding that notice provisions, postings, the time of posting prior to meetings is all regulated by Connecticut General Statute.
That's correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, we've always been in compliance with that, correct?
Correct.
But we should still see it.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
My understanding is everything is posted legally and consistently and accurately. Is that correct?
Correct.
So
You don't need to see it.
you need to look for it to see it. I'm
The
sorry.
language is very similar to what's on your agenda.
Well, if it's a regulation, it has the verbiage of the regulation.
It doesn't. It just has a general description of the regulation change.
It doesn't state, so the public has no way of knowing what the proposed regulation is? I mean, it's not
If
published.
we're changing 10 pages of regulations, those are not posted in the newspaper. The content of what that regulation change is noticed in the newspaper. The description of what that regulation change includes is in the newspaper, not a verbatim change of language.
Which is in the backup
This
material.
has come up
Correct.
so many times last year, when during the middle of the meeting, somebody, could have been me or anybody else, suggested a change, and it was a little too substantial from what we published to the public in advance of the public hearing, where we could not make that change, even though it might have been desirable, because that would have required a new public notice and a new hearing. How does anyone know what was in the original public notice if we don't state what it was? It's not in the public notice what we're planning on proposing.
Right here.
Well,
Ad?
I couldn't find it on the pool thing. I could
It's-
not
it's right
find it.
here.
I couldn't find it.
The ad is?
What's
No, the backup materials.
all the materials are on the website.
Is the original pool restriction on the website? Because I couldn't
Yes.
find it today.
Everything's on the website.
Find it. I couldn't find it. I can only find the alternate one. I don't see anything there before like March 2nd, and this came in like January. So if you find it, then I'll, I'm wrong, but
Let's
I,
get back to the business.
Well,
the
okay,
agenda.
so-
Go ahead, Commissioner Monahan.
So I sent an email on the 16th and I said, if a developer files a summary review application for a purely residential 2 to 9 unit middle housing project on a commercial or mixed-use lot, and the town denies it based on our ground floor commercial requirement, are we confident we can defend the denial in court? And I would like an answer to
I
that
believe-
as we come up
I believe
with,
Attorney Pierce provided an answer. Did he not?
Yes, he
He
did.
did.
yes, which,
So you got your answer.
yeah, which
Respectfully. That's, you
the answer
requested
was
an answer and you
not
received
yes
it.
or no. It
Received
was-
an answer.
It was not yes or no.
Attorney Pierce provided a formal written legal opinion to your request.
Attorney Pierce is not a land use
Attorney Pierce is
attorney.
our town attorney.
We were told.
Attorney
we-
Pierce is our town
We were
attorney.
told he is not a land use attorney and he would
We
not
have
be
one town
discussing-
attorney. We have exactly one town attorney.
The
Attorney
town paid
Pierce
$1
said-
million in legal.
We are going
fees
to
in the
move on to
past
old
year,
business. This is a
and we
dilatory
should have a
conversation.
land use attorney
Section
discussing
four
this
point
topic
two
with
and
us.
section 20.2.5 coastal high hazard VE and coastal AE zones, permitted uses in beach zone district, adding sections prohibiting pools in the beach district zone, coastal AE and B flood zones. Can I please have a motion on the item? Commissioner Randolph.
I move, and for the record, this is modification of what is in currently on the website for proposal, but I move to make the following change to what has been proposed to read the following, and it's really just a deletion of certain words. So currently it says swimming pools in high velocity or limited of moderate wave action zones. And currently it says require a review via special exception application per section 32 and must demonstrate. And I'm suggesting we eliminate that requirement. So it just reads swimming pools in high velocity or limit of moderate wave action zones must demonstrate, colon, and then there's 5 conditions listed and there's no changes to those 5 conditions. No displacement of coastal resources, construction that is frangible, anchored, and or elevated to meet FEMA site location consideration and construction standards. Certification by a licensed coastal engineer that the pool placement does not result in scour of the property or any adjacent foundation elements of residential or other structures. 4, required safety barriers shall be an open work material and shall not exceed the minimum height required by the building code in order to prevent view impacts of coastal resources to adjacent neighbors. 5, walls or future erosion control structures for the purposes of protecting any approved pool structure is not permitted. So just to clarify this for staff, I'm suggesting the deletion of the words under I, deletion of require review via special exception application per section 32 and the word and. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is to add the language from the document that's in the back of materials, section 20 pools VE coastal AE by special exception alternative, but to strike the language in the proposed new section I that says require via a special exception application.
Require review via special exception application per section 32 and the word and.
And right. And to include the rest of the text.
Correct.
As proposed. Okay. Is
Want me
there
to- Does anybody need to read my hand mark out for clarification?
Commissioner Braun?
I need to understand what the purpose is.
Hang on 1 second. We just need to get a second first. I'll come back to you. I have a second on the item. Commissioner Capozzi seconds. Commissioner Randolph.
Let me, so, the intent, of eliminating swimming pools while, motivated to assure public safety and being contained to a limited area, seem to have, raised a lot of concerns that were actually unrelated to the proposal. But the optics of that were that this commission was overreaching in its authority, which in fact, I don't think it was. The compromise we have here allows pools to be installed, but under very strict review as guided by CAM, which is the process we just went through and we go through every week. So I think that it's my belief and my proposition that a CAM review will provide proper assurance and assure safety for the known hazard that pools have demonstrated in flood action zones. So I think this is a compromise that will protect public safety, but also allow people to install pools under strict regulations and camera review.
Thank you, Commissioner Posey.
I agree with Commissioner Randolph, and as I've said, I believe several times, I am not a proponent of any regulation that restricts somebody's use and enjoyment of their property generally. And while I do understand the well-intentioned nature of this proposed regulation with respect to swimming pools in this location, I do think that the fact that we have a very, very, very small number of actual pools in a region that encompasses close to 920 homes, and the fact that implementing the FEMA regulations in order to build a pool are prohibitively expensive, and a vast number of those homes in the proposed area are already at max coverage. I don't think, to use a crude expression, the squeeze is justified by the juice here, and I think that Commissioner Randolph's proposal is sound and fair.
Thank you, Commissioner Braun.
I'd like to ask, let's hear again. Can you explain the difference between not having a special exception with the same exact restrictions versus having a special exception in terms of how this would work?
Because you're adding review standards, it just adds specific metrics to review. The only difference with a special exception is a required public hearing.
So these standards would be done, it would come before us on a coastal site plan review as it does now, right?
That's correct.
But we would not be reviewing these standards because they're not part of coastal site plan review, or we wouldn't?
No, so all of those standards, so this section 20 is the flood protection section. And so every single house that either our zoning enforcement officers look at or John looks at that's within the flood zone has to adhere to the standards within that section. So these just add more clearly defined standards for pools within the velocity zone and the AE flood zone, the AE Limois flood zone, within that section as well.
We had the conversation about, the anchors or making the
Mhm.
pool frangible, which I don't believe we weren't explicit about that prior. There's no clear guidance to direct applicants to include the anchoring or frangibility in their plan. So this includes that language that specifies the frangibility or the anchoring or elevation per FEMA.
That was actually my next question, which is, do these restrictions exactly match what the FEMA restrictions are right now?
It does combined with some of the guidance from DEP. So for example, DEP has told us even for single family homes, that if you've got a house that's built after, I believe the cutoff is 1986, you can't, for example, install a flood protection wall for a house. So the house is supposed to be built to be flood compliant. So we also want to alert potential folks who build a pool in their backyard that if you start to experience erosion in that yard, the state is not going to permit you to install a flood protection structure to protect that pool.
So
So we're just kind of setting expectations.
So, and that has to do with coastal site plan review requirements, right?
Correct. Yep.
Although coastal site plan review, my understanding is, does not have requirements. We make our own decisions. So this is giving us guidance when we do a coastal site plan review only.
It's giving us guidance when we have a property that's within that VE or AE Limois flood zone.
But my question really was, which ones of these match FEMA and which do not match FEMA? The FEMA has its own requirements.
FEMA has guidance.
I thought you had to follow very strict guidelines to have it FEMA.
They have guidance, but they have options built in with those guidance. And so this mirrors that guidance. We've done the same thing, for example, when you look at the VE section as pertains to the width of piers, piles, and columns, we took that guidance and we incorporated it into our regulations. because we see a lot of this construction and we want to have that clarity within our regulations so that, for example, contractors don't have to search through the voluminous volumes of the FEMA requirements, but we can go to the ones that we find we need to implement most commonly.
It seems to me, so I don't know which ones exactly match FEMA or not, but it seems to me that if it refers to FEMA, it should just refer to FEMA rather than potentially being different than FEMA.
It's not different than FEMA, but it's consistent with FEMA.
Like,
And,
okay.
and I will use as an example, for example, when you see elevated structures in the flood zone, whether it's the AE flood zone or the VE flood zone, because our flood zones are particularly deep, you know, some of the AE flood zones are 5 feet deep, as we saw during Storm Sandy. We've built into our regulation an ability to waive that first story that's unoccupiable because it sits within a floodable floodplain. And we've utilized some of the FEMA guidance to visually screen that lower level, consistent with what they don't consider to be either a breakaway wall, but just a visual barrier. And so we've utilized some of the technical guidance within one of their guidebooks to inform what that material should be. So we're allowed to kind of be stricter than FEMA if we want to be. That's entirely our purview. For example, in the town of Fairfield, because we participate in FEMA's community rating system that allows our homeowners to get an annual discount on their flood insurance premium, we have an extra foot of flood protection that property owners are required to build to. Some towns adopt 2 feet, some towns adopt 3 feet, some towns adopt even higher than that. We've chosen a 1 foot extra, but just because FEMA has a standard doesn't mean that we can't allow within our regulations a clarification of what that standard is when we know that we're going to have a repeat type of application for clarity's sake, or go have a stronger standard than what FEMA minimally requires.
So the first item says no displacement of coastal resources. I don't know what that means exactly. It's not really explained. What does that mean? FEMA?
No, that kind of marries a little bit of the coastal management requirements.
But coastal management is our decision-making based on information we get from experts and whatnot about what could be done, what should be done. Do they make up for something somewhere else if they displace something? This seems like it's a prohibition against any displacement of coastal resources. And as environmentalists, yeah, of course, I'm in favor of that, but there could be unique situations where you're making up for something somewhere else.
There's not enough room within a lot of our
Oh, no.
floodplains to be able to kind of replace habitat or a resource.
I don't know what it should be defined before it gets put in
It's
here.
defined within the state statute.
It's not defined here in our regulation. We need to define things in our regulation because that's what people are following. This could go well beyond the Coastal Management Act. So I think that has to be stricken because it's not defined for one thing. And it's not really a FEMA related thing. And then number 2, construction frangible, anchored or elevated to meet FEMA site location consideration and construction standards. That's already required by FEMA, right?
Yes.
So that is not necessary because it's already in FEMA. And if somebody wants flood insurance, they have to get that. They have to do that. They have to provide that.
Are you looking for?
I'm asking if that's true. You're more experienced with FEMA than I am, certainly.
I mean, we're required to adopt minimum FEMA standards. We can make those clearer for our applicants to help them with applications that they want to submit.
So why not just say, follow FEMA?
Well, because I think we want our own guidance for what we understand the environment to be within the velocity zone and the Limois zone within Fairfield.
So number
We're providing
2,
Specific guidance.
Yeah.
Given our context and understanding of that environment.
okay, so number 2 does not go beyond FEMA. It basically just says follow FEMA. Number 3, certified by a coastal engineer that the pool placement does not result in or scour to the property or any adjacent foundation elements of residential or other structures. Is that a FEMA requirement?
It is.
So that's not necessary. And then required safety barriers shall be of an open work material and should not exceed the minimum height required by the building code in order to prevent view impacts of coastal resources to adjacent neighbors. What does that mean exactly? Open work.
So if you have an in-ground pool,
Mhm.
you're required to have a fence around that pool or an automatic cover. It's my understanding that within the state building office is lobbying to change, there was some sort of change in the law that allowed for only an automatic cover to be the approved barrier for an in-ground pool. The state building office wants to revise that back to now requiring a fence around, a safety fence around a pool at a minimum height of 42 inches. And open work, right? Like that's the minimum requirement. However, a lot of people, especially like if you're on Penfield or Roland, they will have a 6-foot solid fence around their backyard. If we have properties that are facing tidal marshlands, we haven't had this issue where we have people who put 6-foot fences along a coastal resource where otherwise we have clear visibility, whether it's for birders, whether it's to see the beach, whether it's fill in the blanks. So if a safety barrier is required, this is a way in which I think to Commissioner Monahan's earlier question, where's our view protection requirements within the zoning regulations? This would be one of them.
Commissioner Monahan.
So if this new legislation is passed on a state level, someone with a pool on the beach needed to fence it in, they would no longer be allowed to fence the pool in, therefore they would no longer be allowed to have a pool.
They would be limited to no more than 42 inches in height, depending on where it's located. Right now, again, if you've got a sandy beach behind your house on Long Island Sound, coastal site plan review is not going to allow you to replace that sand with a built-in pool on the sand. So there are certain self-selections that will happen that will automatically prohibit a pool from being constructed if you're facing Long Island Sound. If it's your house in the sand and then you got the water right there, we adopted a setback, a 25-foot setback off of mean high water, tidal resources. So that setback may bump out the ability to put in a pool if you've only got a 25-foot separation in your rear yard, your side yard, whatever it might be. So there are other regulations that are going to probably limit the number of people who could apply for a pool. But again, I mean, what we've understood is that for folks who live right directly waterfront, that's one of the reasons why houses have to line up together, right? You can't, if you've got a vacant parcel, you have to do the average of the two. If you've got a pre-existing house, you can only build back to where that rear water facing elevation of that house is currently located. You can't move up closer than your other neighbors because that's kind of the only implicit view protection requirement that we have within our regulations within waterfront property locations.
But
For the fence conversation, that's part of it too. You really can't put a fence waterward, depending on where you're located, because our regulations are already going to prohibit that.
it seems like the safety barrier portion should be in our fence regulation, which I think, well, we haven't reached that yet. And I do agree with the walls or future erosion control structures for the purposes of protecting any approved pool structure is not permitted. That's something DEP has long recommended, going back at least 5 years. That if you're gonna build, you don't get to build a wall later on because the sea level is rising. So I agree with that, but I think number 1 and I think 1 through 4 are either not needed or they're covered by other things. And it could potentially conflict, like for instance, again, if the building code says you're not allowed, are they saying you're not allowed to have a fence, or are they saying you don't need to have a fence around your pool?
Right now, it's not permitted in the current building code.
The state building code, which we
Correct.
incorporate into our building code.
Well, when the state adopts their building code, it trickles down to all municipalities.
So again, if the state building code forbids using a fence,
They don't forbid it. You have the option of using an auto cover presently as your barrier. But they want to require a perimeter fence in the future because they don't think that an auto barrier is sufficient. Is what local building officials have been lobbying for in addition to the state building
I
official.
assume the auto cover might not work sometimes and then you have nothing, probably.
I think that's, the auto cover still requires somebody to manually close that cover.
Hang on, let me get this. Commissioner Levy has joined us online, and I see his hand's been up. So Commissioner Levy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm speaking as a member of the public tonight since I've still got anesthesia in my system. But just on the issue of fences, when it does
Wait,
come up.
Commissioner Levy, hang on.
Yeah.
We got, we're not on fences right now.
Oh, okay, well, it's applicable to the pool fences.
Commissioner Levy,
I think we
Yeah.
as
already.
a commissioner, you either have to speak as a commissioner, you can't speak as a member of the public in front of your own commission. Or,
Okay. I'll just listen then.
okay,
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Capozzi.
Well, my understanding is that the numbers 1 through 5, correct me if I'm wrong, are in the regulation currently. Is that correct?
no, it would be added.
But what's not in there?
We don't have
I
one for.
can't speak as a member of the public. I tried. No, I have to.
New item.
So
New section, rather. I'm sorry.
I think these are well reasoned. I reiterate, these are very well reasoned requirements, and I think they manage expectations, and I think we're dealing with a special consideration in a special section of an area that's identified as FEMA as potentially problematic. So I don't understand why we would be striking any of these items 1 through 5. Also, just anecdotally, I currently have a pool that has a safety cover. You have to be standing there to manually close it within I asked to actually have the switch put inside our house. Now, the rule is I have to be outside within eyeshot of the pool cover to make sure that there is no person or animal in the pool when I close the cover. However, I asked when we moved into our house that a 6-foot fence be put around the entire perimeter of our property with gates that lock for safety in case we didn't have the pool cover closed, because it's something you have to manually make sure you close, and you have to be responsible to do it. And you know, if you're having a barbecue or whatever, you are going in and out, it's something, having the fence is something that I feel is an important thing, and it makes me feel secure, even though the state doesn't require it right now. I do feel it's something that is important. What's that?
People do it anyway.
Thank you. Commissioner Delgado or Churchill, any comments?
Just like I appreciate Commissioner Randolph's change. I think what's written to Commissioner Capozzi's point is thoughtful. It adds additional level of review, but it also doesn't require a public hearing that I don't think we feel is necessary. So it's a great compromise that I feel addresses a lot of the concerns that have been raised by the public.
Thanks. Thank you. Commissioner Monahan.
I have 3 questions. Is this for existing pools? I'll throw 3 down at once. Is this for new pools or existing pools? Under what condition would a pool not be able to be built in the beach zone? And our pool standards, you know, there's the beach zone is comprised of, you know, different level at-risk areas. Are the design standards consistent with a home that's on Fairfield Beach Road? The same as it would be if the house was almost on Oldfield Road? Because I think that will be something that will be right now a question for members of the community. Can I build a pool in the beach zone? Can I, under what does it need to be like? And what requirements do I have if I'm not in this zone versus another zone? So are they different zone to zone?
Mr. Chair, would you like me to?
Please.
Okay. So your first question was,
Is this for existing pools or new pools?
So this regulation would apply to proposed pools after you were, if you, should you choose to adopt this regulation. This would apply to pools that adopt after the passage of that regulation and the effective date of that regulation. If you have an existing pool that needs to be substantially improved or requires substantial damage repair of more than 50% its existing value, then it will have to meet those standards as well. So if it was a pool that was constructed in the 80s, that's in the high velocity and the AE flood zone, that's in the limit of moderate wave action area, because this is not a regulation that's within the beach district. So it would just be for those two high hazard flood areas. You would then have to meet existing standards. So if you have a house that's on Oldfield Road, you're likely in the AE flood zone or not in the flood zone at all. So the standard pool requirements would apply, not the standards that we're applying to the high velocity AE or limit of moderate wave action zone, the coastal AE.
Some properties have a partial zone. Is it where the pool is located? on
That's
the
correct.
property? So if the entire property is not in a particular zone and they choose to build the pool outside of that zone, then it would be the area that's, okay. great.
Correct.
That I think should be specified. It would be clear to people.
No, it's clear within our regulations. The flood zone regulations specifically state that it applies within the, for the structure that you're building, if it's in that zone, that flood zone will apply. If it's an AE flood zone, as long as it doesn't cross the line. So if you have a pool that's gonna straddle the VE zone and the AE flood zone, it has to build to the higher standard, just like a house would. So our zoning enforcement staff and our assistant planning director are very well versed in those requirements.
Commissioner Braun.
Getting back to coastal resources. Just reading one of the applications we had tonight, they have a whole coastal site plan review form that the DEP, I guess, puts out. And there are many things defined as coastal resources. Beaches, dunes, bluffs and escarpments, coastal hazard area, coastal waters, developed shorefront, freshwater wetlands and watercourses, intertidal flats, islands, rocky shorefront, shellfish concentration areas, shorelands, tidal wetlands, et cetera. And then there's also a checklist at the end where you talk about potential adverse impacts on coastal resources, applicable or not applicable, degrading, increasing hazard, degrading this and that and the other thing. But it's really up to this commission to determine whether something is being degraded somehow and if it's being made up for some other way. I think this regulation prevents us from making those sort of nuanced decisions. It simply says no displacement of coastal resources. I just don't think it's defined. And I think a better way of wording, number one, would be, follow the guidelines of the Coastal Management Act, because it's really up to us to interpret the Coastal Management Act and exactly what we need to be doing to protect our coastal resources. This is a statement that says no displacement of coastal resources. That to me does not define coastal resources, and it does not give us flexibility to interpret how to carry out the purposes of the Coastal Management Act. And again, the other ones I don't believe are necessary. I think the last one is necessary because that's not part of FEMA. That's something that DEP requires. That's the one about not building future seawall, basically, to protect your property. But the other three are already covered either by the building code or by FEMA, numbers 2 through 4.
Commissioner Capozzi.
I just respectfully, I believe that it is important for this commission's regulations to be straightforward and consistently applied. So especially in an issue as like this, where the public is so passionate and justifiably so about their rights within the confines of their own property. I think it's important that there is a universal expectation that when somebody wants to do something, but in this case with a pool or anything else, that could potentially impact a coastal resource, that Language is very clear that those permits and applications are reviewed consistently, and the regulations are applied also consistently, so that there's a clear expectation that when someone files an application, it's not subject to the whims of any one person's opinion about a specific site or a specific project. And I don't mean anyone on this commission in particular, but future commissions, future review panels, future review mechanisms, that we allow language that is universal as possible, so that all of these regulations continue to meet expectations for the public that are consistent. That's my opinion.
Go ahead, Commissioner Braun.
We were given several maps the first time with a number of 915 or 916 properties affected when this was a ban and when it was a special exception as an alternate. Is that still the same outline of what would be affected right now by these restrictions?
I think for the velocity zone and the limit of moderate wave action zone, I think it was that larger number. But I think it might have been combined for, there was a change in the way that the assessor was looking at parcels along Fairfield Beach Road. So this may be both sides of that Fairfield Beach Road, which kind of increased the number a little bit, but I think it's in that ballpark. I mean, the map is in the presentation.
So I have a couple maps, one that, when I asked a question at the last meeting,
FEMA flood zone map, not the beach district
so
map.
this is not going to be encompass the beach district anymore?
It will be a lot of properties that are in the beach district, but instead of adding a restriction to the beach district, this just adds standards within the flood protection section. So this is no longer within the beach district. This is within the flood protection
So
section.
this is saying in the high velocity or LIMWA, limit of moderate wave action zone. So anybody who's in those zones, and they would only know that by their flood insurance, I guess, if they're in that zone?
They normally, if they want to do work on their property, they'll come and talk to our zoning enforcement office or plan and zoning staff to ask that question.
Because
A lot of times people, when they buy their property, they understand that they're in a flood zone. Sometimes they don't.
so we don't know if it would be 915 or what, but
So you know, also in our permitting system, all parcels that are in the flood zone are flagged. So if they come in and pull a building permit, it automatically comes up.
there's 3 or 4 different types of flood zones, but this only mentions 2 of them, right?
But that would lead them to go and ask the question if they're in the flood. If we, at least on our end, we would ask the question about, it would lead to us looking into it to find out what zone they're in. So it kind of just, we, by having our database of parcels that say they're in the flood zone, then we know to help the applicant guide them in the right direction. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Commissioner Monahan.
So does encompass hot tubs as well? Built-in hot tubs as well as pools?
Those are already covered by we have a pool and hot tub section and is covered by that language.
A lot of times people will put their hot tub up on an elevated deck, in which case that applies.
So if you wanted to build a hot tub in the ground, a
And the ground
small,
would be under the same requirements for swimming pool.
okay, so I think it should say swimming pools or hot tubs.
Can add that. I mean, in all honesty, it's same component. But
I don't
the way that the hot
know,
tubs are
but-
designed, I don't see them going in the beach.
I don't think you can anchor them because you would puncture their enclosure.
Yeah,
They're a
it's
different
insulated
kind of,
around the perimeter of a
Yeah.
hot tub. For the most part.
Hot tub's not frangible.
A lot of people want to build small hot tubs.
Plunge
slash
pools.
Plunge pools.
Plunge pool is different. It's different than
Plunge
a,
pools, we'll call them a hot tub plunge pool, right, it's a pool.
maybe, yeah, we would call that a pool.
So anywhere in the beach district, a hot tub or a pool as long as they meet these criteria, could be built, correct? Or rebuilt without special exception or special permit.
I think the hot tub itself would is curable on its own because it wouldn't be able to be constructed in the beach district.
A plunge pool. call
Yeah,
it.
if it's a plunge pool, that's not a hot tub. So that is the same. A plunge pool is something just a little bit smaller than a regular
Yeah.
pool.
Regardless of
Um,
size, right?
Yes, that can be anchored because it's a gunite or a one piece. It can be anchored the same way as a pool can be anchored.
Great.
So that would be considered a pool. And, the delineation between the two is, it comes before our office. It's just a matter of how it's gonna be constructed. We determine whether or not we're going that component to be put in front of you for, obviously, either way, it's gonna be put in front of you in the CAM application.
Right.
But no, the standard hot tub wouldn't even make it to, being able to be filled up with water if it was anchored into, because it would just be destroyed.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
Can you just repeat what existing pools that need to be replaced or significantly repaired? What's the guideline for when they would have to follow these restrictions or not?
So FEMA requires, as a minimum requirement of our participation in the National Flood Insurance Program, that we adopt a certain set of minimum standards within our regulations. One of them is commonly referred to as the 50% rule. When structures are either improved or repaired more than 50% of their present value, they have to be brought up to FEMA standards, which is why you see so many house tear downs and reconstructions to meet the FEMA requirements. Even garages have to meet the same standard. FEMA's language says any structure. So we calculate that structure independently. So if a garage is detached, we look at the value of that garage, and if, again, improvements or damage repair exceeds 50% of the existing value of that structure, then it has to then meet those flood requirements. A pool would be the same thing. So if somebody's pool is 50 years old and it needs to be replaced, FEMA requires that we then bring that pool into flood compliance. If we have a Category 3 hurricane and that pool gets ripped apart, it then would have to be built to meet FEMA standards.
So the 50% is the assessed value of the pool, which has got to be.
It's the appraised value of the pool, that structure. So not the land value. The land value goes away. It's just the value of that pool.
What's the typical assessed value of a pool in the beach district?
you're correct.
It really
It's about 10%.
depends.
If you
So
wanted
if
to redo
it's.
the coping on the pool, or if you wanted to replace.
So the assessor lists that out. So if you look at the tax card, the assessor is gonna list out the pool value. And sometimes that depreciates over time. So if it's a pool that's in fair value, they might value it as slightly less. If it's a pool that's in good shape, maybe they'll assign $70,000 to the value. It depends on the size as well, because they do indicate a square footage size for that pool. And then they'll indicate as an added feature, when you look at I think it's under the extra improvements table. It will indicate whether there's pavement or a patio adjacent to it. That seems like it's integrated into the pool. So we would probably have to look at what's being replaced.
Any major pool repair or coping or refinishing the inside of a gunite pool, et cetera, will cost in excess of $10,000. So if the assessed value of the pool is $10,000
Appraised value.
appraised value, and 70% of that, okay, let's go to 7,000, right? Is the assessed value 70%? Anything, half of that is $3,500. That's a very low number to not be able to redo your pool if it gets damaged without having to completely redig it out of the ground, make it frangible, anchor it, et cetera, and so forth. That seems excessive.
Believe me, when people buy $800,000 houses by the
It's not
beach,
Houses we're talking about. We're talking
they're
about the
very
pools.
surprised when the house is only worth 200,000 of that.
The assessor actually changed that and brought the values way down on the houses and not on the property. So I know this is a very sticky subject with people. So if someone has a pool today, it's valued by the town at, $10,000. So it's assessed at $7,500 and they need to do 50% of the repair. That's $3,500.
No, we'd use the
$5,000.
appraised value. So if it's an in-ground pool,
Even then, it's $5,000. You can't do the.
I think I see them at much higher numbers, don't you?
But there's only one price. It's not broken down. The accessory structures are all individually
Yeah.
itemized out by the assessor. And, you know, for the most part, I've seen them at around 10 grand, but there are some that are up closer to 50, 65, 70,000
Depends on
dollars.
the age.
And I'm gonna tell you, if they're brand new and, you know, if somebody's looking to replace their coping, you know, 2 or 3 years later, they're gonna have enough money to do that under the cost cap allowance. But as,
Does the
Emily
law
has said,
apply every 2 years? They're allowed to do 50% of the repairs
No,
also to the
one.
pool?
it's 1 year from from the close of a permit, you have 12 months before you can do work again.
1 year. So you could do the coping 1 year, you could finish the inside another year.
Which
Okay.
is what people do to their houses and everything else.
Okay. Well, that just needs to be communicated, I think, to the.
We
to
do
people
that
buying.
very clearly
Yeah.
to everybody that calls and
Yeah.
identify it out for them so that
Great,
they're
thank
okay.
All right, let me just chime in quickly. I think this is a smart approach to this issue. I like to err on the side of preserving personal property rights. I think this does that. It continues to allow pools, in-ground pools. I also think it helps to achieve part of what the intent of this was in the first place. Part of it, of course, was the environmental protection aspect, but I think the aggregate of all the regulation amendments that this was originally part of, the 20 plus amendments that were originally presented together. I think part of that is also to address a lot of issues that come up over and over and over again with our zoning enforcement officers. And so while this is just one of those, I think, again, this combined, Commissioner Braun mentioned that some of this doesn't necessarily need to be spelled out because the guidelines exist elsewhere, and that may be the case. But I think, again, in the aggregate, having some of it spelled out in our regulations will, across lots of different regulations, will help ease the workload a bit of our staff that is getting questions that may now be answered by reading the zoning regulations. So I think this achieves multiple goals at once. And so I'm supportive, Commissioner Braun.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the text amendment to change number 1 from saying no displacement of coastal resources to saying shall comply with the purposes of the Coastal Management Act. Any second?
I'm sorry, I just ask for
Shall comply-
clarification with Coastal Management Act, or is that specifically with regard to
Shall
coastal
comply with the
resources, or
provisions of the Coastal Management Act.
you know that better than I do? Is that specific to
Well, the
coastal
Coastal Management Act
resources?
covers a lot of things, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're doing a coastal site plan review anyway, but this, to me, is more restrictive than the Coastal Management Act. Coastal Management Act has a whole lot of categories of what we would consider when we decide if it complies or does not. And this provision here, number 1, simply says no displacement of coastal resources without really defining what that means. So I think since we know the purpose of that line is to talk about the Coastal Management Act, we should simply state it shall comply with the provisions of the Coastal Management Act.
So before we go for a vote, let me just ask the person who owns the motion if he maybe supports it.
Commissioner Braun, I understood your concern about the lack of clarity on number 1. And I was looking up the definition of coastal resources, and deep does have a definition of coastal resources. So would you consider no displacement of coastal resources as defined by CT deep?
I don't know what no displacement, that means we can't allow any flexibility in terms of, you know, making up for it somehow. I mean, I don't know how that would work in real life.
I think the checklist is really beneficial to the public as well, to say exactly what they can and cannot do.
The
I think your
purpose of
concern is
number
more
1,
about adding flexibility.
yeah, the purpose of number 1 is to comply with Coastal Management Act. Why don't we just say that? Like we're saying everything else, comply with FEMA, comply with building code, comply with Coastal Management Act. That gives us the flexibility of, just putting an absolute prohibition on that. I don't know what that means. Taking a ditch.
Go ahead, Director Hargan.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I could just speak to that matter.
Go ahead.
In the 50s, this whole neighborhood that's adjacent here was filled tidal marshland. So that's displacement of coastal resources, right? The Coastal Management Act has only been around since the 80s. I think it just provides a clear expectation for a property owner who says, well, it's a little swampy in this yard over here. I'd like to fill that and put in a pool. That they have a clear understanding that that's probably not something that's going to be allowed to occur when they're looking through the regulations and they understand they're in a flood zone and they want to install a pool. So it's very difficult, given our current context of environment, to understand that there's a way, even for inland wetlands, right? Oftentimes, if you displace an inland wetland, it's very hard to replicate that environment that has taken thousands of years to create itself. It's just a very simple statement to provide an expectation and a frame of understanding for property owners that they can't erase a dune to put in a pool. They can't fill a tidal marshland in order to put in their pool. It just provides a context for them to have an expectation for what they can or can't do. And it helps us to be able to have them have that understanding.
So when we review coastal applications under the Coastal Management Act, we're acting like a mini DEP. We're acting like the Inland Wetlands Commission when they review inland wetlands applications. So they actually could go into wetlands if they want, if they make provisions for making up for it. They did that on the Metro Center. They got rid of all the wetlands and they said, create these other wetlands. We could potentially do that. We probably wouldn't, because we usually follow the advice of DEP, or maybe we seek the advice of our own experts in town. But to just say you can't do this is a prohibition. I think it's smarter just to let us have the authority that the Inland Wetlands Commission has to do what they do, which is to interpret the law and protect our resources in a manner that makes sense to us. Probably we would never allow that anyway, but just put a prohibition like this without defining what it means, to me, doesn't make sense. It's not proper drafting of a regulation.
So
Commissioner Randolph.
yeah, so I think there's two different issues that are being raised here. One is displacement, which is the intent of here. So there's no displacement of coastal resources. And the second, which Commissioner Braun seems to be advocating for the possibility of displacement, but the intent of this is to not displace it. The second question is, what are coastal resources? Which I think is my bigger question. So can we specify the definition of coastal resources to what's deep?
No, I would never advocate this.
So-
Said you were.
So, Commissioner Braun, I know typically you're very you're a strong defender of coastal resources, but by eliminating the word displacement, I think you're in potentially allowing people to do a workaround on coastal resources, just eliminating coastal resources. So I think that could have an unintended consequences, but I think your point of defining what coastal resources are is a good one. So and I'm just as a conversation here, if we said no displacement of coastal resources as defined by CT Deep, would that
Well, that's what you said last time, but
address your?
it's still,
concern?
it does not give us the flexibility to carry out the purposes of the
Well,
Coastal Management Act.
let's split the issues in two. Does that address your concern about the ambiguity of the
Yeah,
definition?
defining coastal resources pursuant to the Coastal Management Act is correct. We should be doing that.
So back to the displacement,
I don't know what that means, displacement.
displacement means it's I think a commonly understood term of getting rid of. Right? Displacing is getting rid of coastal resources.
Temporarily removal and things being put back.
Well, what if you're doing a repair job and there was a pool there that already displaced them? Does this mean you can't repair the pool or replace the pool because it's continuing the displacement?
The new pool would not displace what was already displaced, right?
Having the provisions already outlined is very clear. They're very clear, yes, provisions. Can you read them? Read them in terms of what the provisions are that are.
Oh, I thought you meant these provisions.
No, I mean, the provisions there's pages of them.
Yeah. The Coastal Management Act, the checklist that they have talks about potential adverse impacts, degrading, increasing
The hazard
flooding,
of
degrading.
Storing wildlife.
Yeah.
Erosion patterns, groundwater flow.
There's probably a better way of wording this than simply saying displacing.
If I might just add, if you can put yourselves in the shoes of somebody who comes to our counter
That's,
and says, hey, I'd like to put in a pool, but I'm at this address, and they're in a high velocity zone and a coastal Limois zone. Our staff is not gonna hand them the 7-page application for coastal management review. They're gonna advise them, hey, you really can't displace coastal. Well, I'd really like to level this dune and be able to put in my pool. The way that these regulations are written provides them the guidance to say, just know that you're of sensitive environmental resources, coastal resources in this area, and you can't displace those in order to, it sets an expectation. I don't really want to have my zoning enforcement officers have to give a 7-page application to an applicant and say, well, figure it out.
But they have to do that anyway.
That's not the best way to approach a simple request.
Public understand the regulation, as Emmeline is saying. Again, we're not gonna hand out a piece of paper and tell them to go read it. We're gonna explain to them what they can and can't do. And if they're looking to put in a pool in a place that's gonna displace something, I'm gonna tell them, you can't put it there. You gotta put it somewhere else.
Okay. I hear you.
It's as simple as that, and we have the literature and the regulation to back up everything we say. And I'm not gonna give somebody something for them to interpret it and then come back and tell me, well, this is how I see this.
Okay.
That's not how we
It's
see it.
workability you're talking about, but they do actually have to do the coastal site plan review. They have to fill out the form, right?
The CAM
getting them on every-
application's gotta be done and sent up to the DEP, yes.
But regulations are sometimes a guide to somebody who's making an inquiry on their property. You're assuming that they've already gone 5 steps in the future. This is a guide for, here are the parameters for where a pool is going to be appropriate. And somebody may say, okay, I understand that. I'm going to go ahead and submit my application. But for the people who are just making an initial inquiry, this sets expectations.
It also is a regulation that is enforceable. It's not just an expectation. We must follow it also.
Commissioner Capozzi.
I think, I think also, if I may, Commissioner Monahan is more of an expert on this than anyone. If you had a client who wanted to buy a parcel and one of their concerns was, can I put a pool there? A realtor or client themselves could go to the town and understand very clearly and have a very set, a clear expectation. And I think the way that,
now that this is being discussed, we will have a clear expectation.
yes, that's,
Because for the past few months, this has been an unknown and it's created a lot of anxiety among buyers and sellers
yeah.
and pool owners.
And I also think that I think that we've seen and we've dealt with as a commission, the dangers of having an open-ended regulation that's open to interpretation where one neighbor may get to do something that another neighbor might not later. And that creates, I think the way that Commissioner Randolph has written the, sorry. Oh, they wrote, I'm so sorry. The way that you've written these, the way that you've written, I apologize, the way that you've written these, regulations, really closes the door on that ambiguity and the potential, sort of inapplicable, application of these regulations.
So hang on, let's just get back to, so the Commissioner Randolph has suggested adding language to the end of point 1 as defined by CTDP. And it's your second. Are you okay with that? Okay, so that part, we can amend the motion to include that language. Commissioner Braun, go
We
ahead.
could change the word displacement to destruction. That would be more clear to me.
Commissioner
Because
Randolph.
degradation would still have the capability of doing a coastal site plan review with degradation and have our nuanced approach if we wanted.
Go ahead, Commissioner Randolph.
Destruction seems to be a higher standard than displacement. Displacement is,
Displacement means to move.
That's what I
Moving
thought it meant
something.
too.
destruction means to,
Destruction sounds ambiguous, sounds more
Destroy.
ambiguous.
yeah, destroy. I
When do
mean,
you decide something's been destroyed?
When
How do you define that?
How do you define displaced?
It's moved, that's simple. Something is moved, it's displaced, done.
But it could be moved back.
No,
No,
it's
it's-
displaced. Once,
when
one move.
when wetlands are displaced, there's usually,
That would be destroyed.
No, when wetlands are displaced, you've got a 2-for-1 replacement.
Sometimes 3-to-1,
So
sometimes the
sometimes you get
Army
a
Corps
3-for-1
requires
replacement of wetlands.
3-to-1 or 4-to-1, depending on
Yeah,
the,
so if you displace a wetland, you can't replace it 1-for-1. You got to replace it at a higher ratio typically because you're replacing something that has a lower value. It takes a long time for it to mature. So
so
this-
if I could also add one other thing, because I have my zoning enforcement officers here. Sometimes there's things that we know and sometimes there's things that we don't know. So if somebody decides they're gonna install an above ground pool in this environment, this also gives my staff the ability to work off of language to enforce that violation in a very clear way.
I think, we've exhausted the argument on the displacement. If Commissioner Braun wants to move to amend it as such, we could have a vote on it, but I think everyone's made their points on that item. Commissioner Braun.
Okay, I'm just reading the definition. Destruction implies the complete physical removal of the ecosystem. Displaced often refers to the relocation of ecosystem functions like flood storage or the forced movement of wildlife due to habitat degradation. But like, so I like the word destroyed because that's really what we want to avoid. There may be, and I would probably never approve of this or endorse it. There may be some circumstance where something could be moved from one place to another to make up for it. I don't know. So I would like to make a motion to replace the word displaced with destruction. Displaced
Displacement.
with destruction. To me, that's a more serious problem than displacement. I don't know how to define displacement without putting the definition in there.
Commissioner Braun moves to amend the motion to change the word displacement to destruction. Is there a second?
I'm in a second, even though it doesn't matter when it comes to the vote.
Commissioner Monahan seconds. Any other comments on this? All those in favor of the motion to amend the original motion as stated, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Motion fails 5-2.
But we are including the definition as for DEP.
Yeah.
We haven't voted on that yet.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, if that's the motion currently reads to add that language.
Yep.
Yes.
That's Commissioner Randolph's motion. Your second. Okay, let's put this to a vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the proposed regulation text with the modification as indicated by Commissioner Randolph. And again, the
Striking
words,
language, yeah.
yeah, striking the language, special exception application and replace it. And then also adding,
Destruction,
I'm sorry,
without the word destruction.
the word destruction is not in there, so that's not a change. And then adding to point 1 at the end of that as defined by CTDEP. Please raise your hand or say aye. All those opposed, all those abstaining. So the motion passes 5-1 with 1 abstention. Moving on to section 19, fences and walls, a new section regarding fence and wall height setbacks and locations in relation to intersections and driveways. And again, just as a reminder, this is not the beach fencing piece, which we'll address in a moment. I have a motion on this item.
I've moved to postpone since Commissioner Levy, who was intimately involved with this, is unable to be with us tonight.
But we're not discussing the beach part.
We're not. So if I could just, through you, Mr. Chair, if I could
Yeah,
just
please.
clarify. So section 19 is within the supplemental standards section, and this applies to all parcels in town in terms of, especially for the visibility triangle component. If you're a corner property, for example, there's a diagram within that section. So this was part of the larger set that was really just intended for, let me say, most other properties outside of the Peach District area. And so I think that these are appropriate for the commission to discuss tonight, and we are postponing any conversation of snow fences in the beach area until Commissioner Levy, who was the one who suggested some language related to that, is able to join us again, and he's estimated that would be at the end of May.
I have a question related
I
to-
withdraw my recommendation, so.
Okay, do I have I'll get to, do you have a motion on the item? Commissioner, is that a hand raise?
Yeah,
Commissioner?
yeah, I'll move to adopt these regulations. I do have questions.
Okay, Commissioner Braun moves to approve. Do I have a second? Commissioner Capozzi seconds. Commissioner Braun?
So my question is related to the beach. Could Ms. Harrigan please explain the history of this? I just don't remember. We've talked about it so many times. Was the beach area fence, how was that change made onto this proposed regulation? And is
There
it
was-
completely ignored now? So there's no beach impact on this at all now?
Correct. So when we brought up this section, it was specifically a request from our engineering department, our traffic division, our traffic safety division of our police department, just to address fences, deer fencing, which we commonly get requests about, is a deer fence a fence? And we don't consider it to be a fence. So there were certain things that were assumed by staff for most parcels. And so we articulated those office developed standards within actual regulations, including that visibility triangle for which there is a diagram in the proposed language. So that if you are at a stop sign at a corner, somebody inadvertently through the installation of a 6-foot fence too close to that corner blocks your ability to see oncoming traffic. So that's what this section pertains to. What had come up in our initial discussion of that section was, well, what do we do about fences in the beach district? We have decided to separate those two things and to have that beach snow fence conversation later, in part by some of the commentary that was received both in public from our flood protection, climate resilience, erosion control board as well, about the value of snow fences, how they allow you to accrete sand on these waterfront properties. And so all of that is going to be addressed through a later conversation for those types of items that allow property owners to delineate their property boundaries and what would be acceptable treatments for those property boundary delineations, whether it's snow fences, the posts and the rope scenario. But generally speaking, fences that are considered fences in most other parcels in town are not permitted waterward the rear elevation of a house. So we're trying to define those other things that have been acceptable to the plan and zoning office instead. So that'll be a secondary conversation that will happen, I think, when Commissioner Levy is able to join us at the end of next month.
So the only thing that could potentially affect because this does not exclude the beach. It does have something about setbacks, but
Right now, fences are not permitted waterward the rear elevation of a
that's
house.
another regulation.
That's within the beach district, correct?
That's already there. We're not changing that.
We're not changing that, correct?
And, okay, so this has no impact.
Correct.
So how is this enforceable? So if someone has shrubs right now that are growing, this says, to be clear, it says no structure, fence wall, shrubbery, tree, retaining wall, or other visual obstruction which exceeds 3 feet in height. Doesn't talk about depth. Above road level shall be placed or maintained within the triangle formed by a line connecting the two intersecting streets at a point 24 feet from the street line intersecting as shown on the diagram. So we're gonna make people take the trees out if they are in these areas.
If there's a visibility hazard, correct. And our zoning enforcement officer can now issue orders to comply.
Think this needs to be made more public than us deciding on it tonight. And I would
So
like more
this is-
research on that to drive around town to see who's affected and how many homes are affected. I just need a week.
It was already noticed. I'm not sure what you mean by more public. There was a public hearing on this.
There's a public hearing on this particular topic, and we discussed removal of the items, removal of the shrubs, removal of the fences in those.
You don't have to remove them, you have to cut them down to a lower height.
You have to cut them back to 3 feet.
Correct.
So that's if there's a dogwood tree in the corner, that dogwood tree has to come out.
A dogwood tree generally doesn't obstruct in the same way as a full, like if you're doing a whole row of arborvitae that grow to 9 feet tall and it's obstructed, it's creating a public safety impact. That's, again, this is recommended to us by our police department because it can cause traffic accidents. This is a
No,
public
I-
safety
I-
hazard.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think just, for people who already have properties that, will be affected by this, I'm not quite sure everybody knows the ramifications of this, but doesn't matter anyway.
Commissioner Randolph.
I've got a clarification question. So I'm looking at the diagram. And it shows the street is gray and then it says street lines. Is that lot lines?
It's lot lines.
So should we maybe make that clarification?
The property boundary that is facing the street is referenced as a street line in our regulations.
Okay, great. So this is cutting back to the property lines, which small p property lines, which are defined as street lines.
If they're on the street, correct.
The town owns how many feet from the sidewalk in or from the road? in?
It
It
varies,
varies by the street, depending on the public right of way width.
40 feet
On
usually,
main roads, it's usually
40 feet.
So for example, the post road is 120 feet wide. The,
a property owner's property. X number of feet from the street on most parcels is what, 8 feet, 6 feet, 4 feet?
sometimes it can be 8 feet, sometimes it can be 12 feet. It depends on where, based on topography, that road was originally centered.
So to be
Sometimes
clear,
it's not centered, sometimes.
This is the land. This is including that area, correct?
No, it's off of the property boundary.
So you're going back even farther.
So you are drawing a triangle. If you've got, and this only applies to corner lots, right? So you're applying, sure, you can show the diagram.
I wish there was a house overlay on it.
Show you my corner.
It
Violate-
depends
I
on the
violate this.
property, because if you're in the AAA zone, which is a 2 acre lot, then the house is gonna be set back quite a larger distance from, you're not even gonna see the house, for example, in this
The
diagram.
Fence might be affected by this on the corner.
If, right, so you would have to have a lower fence, you would have to have a lower shrub. And we picked the 24-foot width based on consultation with the engineering department and the police department. And this is, 24 is like basically 3 sections of fence. So we tried to also make it property owner friendly so that you don't have to, like some towns say, oh, you need a 30-foot by 30-foot triangle. But then that's not helpful when you're buying fence sections that come in, 6-foot sections, 4-foot sections, I can't remember, 8-foot sections. So it's usually like three sections of fence. So that's how we kind of came to that calculation. We reviewed it with our engineering department and the police department, and they said this seems sufficient.
On a lot of smaller lots, I agree about the sightline issues, I think. But I think for this to apply to every zone and every area in town could be a little problematic. I think smaller lots, people who fence in their yard with their dogs, their kids, et cetera, that setback that you're including is not going to allow them to fence in their yard.
They can have a fence right to their corner, but it has to be lower in height, has to be 36 inches within that corner. So they can still enclose their corner, but that portion of fence needs to be lower than the rest of their fence.
Commissioner Braun.
But you could have a split rail fence, right?
Sure.
Does this carve that out or?
No, you can have a fence right on your property line. What this regulation says is within that view protection corner, that fence has to be a lower height, has to be 36 inches or lower, right? There's 36, yeah.
So if you go to Mill Plain Road and Umpqua Road, there's a stone wall with fencing over it. According to this, that would not be able to be rebuilt, correct?
We would have to apply the triangle and see where that falls within the visibility from the intersection.
It's actually 42 inches,
Sorry, 42 inches.
3.5 feet.
From the curb.
No, the height of the fence.
But that means they could be violating it right now. They'd have to take it down. It's not waiting till you reconstruct it or repair it. That they could be in violation right now.
They could, but you know, again, if
Or a fence or a shrub that we'd have to take down.
you
I'm in
end up with,
violation on my corner
Well, I'm
because I've
gonna,
got shrubbery.
I'm gonna let Mr. Decker know
And
about
if you,
that.
no, but if you get in an accident and I'm in violation, I'm liable. Right.
So, but if there's a wall already there, if there's a fence already there, you're saying you're gonna have people remove them.
if, you know, again, this is a public safety initiative to make sure that we don't end with people getting T-boned, right? So
I think it should be.
unfortunately, yes,
I think it
there's,
should be new regarding fences and walls and anything that's being constructed. And then if it needs to be replaced, then, you know, it's the new rules, but I don't think we should be removing people's fences and people's walls and mature trees on certain properties. I think it's overreach.
Agree with Commissioner Monahan.
And just
Go ahead.
point of clarification, where it says street lines, that really means property line, right? Because that,
that's commonly how we refer to. So for example, if you look at the zoning table within the residential section of our regulations, it refers to the property line closest to the street as the street line. That's how it's referred to within
that
our
picture be moved
regulations.
down a little bit so I can understand that better, that. So. And the public right of way, does that go beyond the street line or that's within the street line?
So see the gray area, that's meant to indicate a street.
Mhm.
The public right of way could include a sidewalk, it could be grass between the paved edge of the road and the property line.
Can't see through there.
So this prohibition goes just to the edge of your property line. Okay.
Correct. And this is similar to, I don't know, for those commissioners who were here for the Hulls Farm Road subdivision, engineering required a view triangle similar to this as an easement so that they could not put anything that would obstruct view within that corner of the cornermost property, right? So this is something that's commonly discussed, but it's never been articulated by regulations. And it allows us for future issues that we may have where unfortunately somebody gets T-boned for us to then go out and to enforce the standard.
We also,
Commissioner Churchill?
I just want to add that it's also concerning. We have so many kids going around right now on bikes and scooters and motorbikes. I am okay with inconveniencing some homeowners if it saves a few lives, because there are a lot of kids going out there and they're not always looking. So if this is impairing someone's ability to see around a corner and there's a kid coming, that seems like a way of attempting to mitigate the harms while balancing homeowner needs. They can still have their fence. They're just gonna have to make some edits or some changes.
So if a dogwood is there and the dogwood is not, we don't consider a dogwood to be obstructing, but that would violate this. So
No,
No.
it's not a continuous hedge.
it says,
any obstruction.
okay, I'm looking at the driveway section.
I mean, there's a lot of
There's no
homes
obstruct-
that
so-
have walls, and I don't know the distance of the walls currently that are built. I mean, beautiful, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the beautiful wall and the fence on top on Mill Plain Road on the corner of Encore Road. And it's a beautiful new wall. Are we telling him to take it down?
Without looking at that particular property, I mean, they may be set back significantly enough that this doesn't apply to them.
It's not. So we would be, if we pass this, requiring residents to remove stone walls. We would be requiring residents to remove any and all shrubs that are above a certain height or cut them back completely. I think that's an overreach.
If it was deemed a public safety issue, then they wouldn't have to remove it, they would have to lower it at that corner to provide full visibility and improve traffic safety.
What about streets that curve where there's an intersection?
Well, we would have to look at that differently. If it's not, we would work with our engineering department to look at where that property intersects with a corner.
Other comments? Commissioner Capozzi?
I would be in favor of, if it's a pre-existing situation, for lack of, I can't think of a better word, that there is there is some kind of an appeals process where there is, it's not where somebody, I think this for a new construction is appropriate, but if there is a pre-existing mature tree or pre-existing wall, that there's some sort of an ability for that homeowner to appeal it and have a sort of a reasonable human analysis of a pre-existing tree, shrub, wall, so that if a zoning inspector or duly empowered official deems it to actually be a public safety hazard, given that it's existed there for hypothetically 20 years, that then a remedy is made. But if the situation is not so cut and dry, and that somebody with knowledge of the issue who is empowered by the town to make that determination goes to the site and says, in this case, that's not a sufficient obstruction to warrant a full remediation or a tearing down of a structure or a wall or ripping out of a hedge or a tree. I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
Can I clarify also, I mean, this regulation passes, you have an effective date for this regulation, which is the day after it's noticed in the paper. We don't go out in the field and say, oh, you need to revise all of this. If anybody has like a wall that is more than 3 feet in height, they're supposed to be getting a building permit for that. That's a structure. It requires foundations for a wall over 3 feet in height.
And I'm talking about pre-existing.
If it's pre-existing, it's pre-existing. A regulation goes into effect, you've got pre-existing stuff that happens. But if there's a scenario where there's a car accident and a car levels their wall and they have to replace that wall, if it's over 3 feet in height, they should be getting a building permit for it. When they come in to get the building permit, we can then advise them, well, you're gonna have to lower that height at that corner because you have a visibility problem.
Any home on a corner no longer put a fence in their front yard if it's 24 feet by 24 feet and make it without coming back all the way into their property.
No, they can put a fence at that corner. It has to be a lower height fence. Has to be no more than 42 inches.
Which kids could get right over, right?
Or it could follow that, but
Yeah, it follows that. It just needs to be chamfered back.
Terrible. Yeah,
You see them around everywhere now. The beach, you see them everywhere.
love to see one.
But so if this regulation goes into effect, somebody had a pre-existing 6-foot stone wall that had been there for 50 years. And then would it be a permitted non-conforming? Okay. It wouldn't be that somebody would come out and say, you gotta take a wrecking ball to that stone wall.
No, but then at some point in the future, if, again, there's a car accident and it drives into that corner.
Oh, no, understood. I'm just saying, if absent some sort of destruction or it falls down or whatever, they would have a permitted non-conforming property in that case.
Now, in any circumstance, so right now we don't have a regulation at all. We get calls from people all the time saying, I'd like to put in a fence. What are my limitations? And we tell them over the phone, you can have up to a 6-foot fence. However, and we provide them oral guidance on the phone. If you're near a corner, you don't want to block visibility. We don't have a regulation that's actually embedded in our regs. We give them advice over the phone, which our engineering department and our police department would like us to legalize so that we can enforce. And we also advise people, hey, if you're next to your neighbor's driveway, we can't require you to lower the height as you get closer to the road. But if your neighbor backs out into traffic and gets hit by another car, they may sue you for you might be liable for obstructing their view, right? So.
So I think there's concern over, if you will, what we can grandfather. So for the record,
Such thing as grandfather.
Please.
for the record, I support this change because it is a dangerous condition. We've been considering this for a long time. I've been doing my homework and finding there are a number of locations, if you look around town, that do conform to this standard. it is dangerous to have a fence at a corner. And if you, there's a number of locations down at the beach where you can see how beneficial this is. My corner of my house has this problem. I'm aware of it. And I've got shrubs there that I got to take down. I'm aware of it. But if we were to say under 19.1.1, any new fence, stone wall or unroofed terrace, so that would cover something that was added for a structure. But what's ambiguous is landscaping. I know I've got a condition. I live around the corner. One of my neighbors is here. But it is, I know I need to take down my landscaping, and I think that we should encourage people to do that and not to plant anything new. So my suggestion would be to say any new individual fence under 19.1.1 to address the concerns of existing conditions for fences, but then keep that for to basically require people to remove landscaping, which can be removed more easily.
Modifying the,
This is open for discussion. So does that satisfy some of the concerns?
could you crystallize what you said a little shorter?
19.1.1, any new individual, basically add the word new.
I still don't think we should be telling people they have to remove fences that are already there.
What said any new?
That's
said- I-
visibility, the
tried to address your-
visibility at intersections. It still says, or visual obstruction which exceeds shall be placed or maintained within a triangle. You can't maintain.
You can't maintain landscaping.
You should take out maintained. Which exceeds 3 feet in height above road level shall be placed, not or maintained, within the triangle formed by. And the issue is also, can you show a picture of that?
Oh,
There's many intersections in town that are not, vertical, horizontal lines. There are certain angles. So what would the interpretation be of those streets that come like this that have intersections? How's the measurement going to take place on that?
This is really for properties at corners.
Yeah, at corners.
Correct.
So
Properties at corners.
I think
Like Umpqua and Mill Plain Road is not a right angle, it's sort of an odd angle.
interesting.
How does that,
Can I answer that? Oh, what?
you show the picture.
I mean, I don't know if anyone can see
There's
this.
a sightline triangle. It's called you have to create a sightline triangle, which would comply to the intent of this.
You have to take
Right.
that wall out.
We're gonna apply it as the diagram.
Yeah, but in an angled street, there's something called a sightline triangle that road engineers apply. And it's commonly understood and it would apply to the intent of this. So that condition is understood and evaluated.
But see, this does not accommodate a sightline triangle or an engineering
It does.
determination. It just says remove, it can't be done.
No, it says, see right there, it says sightline triangle right there.
hang on, it says
It's delineating it for
within the
us.
triangle formed by a line connecting any two intersecting streets.
Yeah.
So it doesn't specify a right angle, an obtuse angle, an acute angle. It says an angle formed by two intersecting streets.
I think this affects a lot of homes.
There's also one on Round Hill Road and Mill Plain Road that has a similar non-right angle fence, wall. They have to come down.
Okay, so was it your motion? No, I think it was Commissioner Braun's motion.
It's Commissioner Braun's motion.
And you were suggesting to,
Add the word new, Commissioner Braun, to 19.1.1A.
I think that's required, but can you? I'm not an engineer. By sightline triangle, how would that apply to something that's at an angle? Would it be the same, necessarily the same dimensions, 24 feet, or could it be different if the sightline triangle is
don't say-
safety factor?
Commissioner Randolph, because you
Yeah.
said that, I don't think these regulations don't specifically say sightline triangle, right?
It's in,
This
it's
is
in,
24
it's in
No, in the
the,
in the
it's in the
in the
diagram.
diagram.
Yeah.
What does it say?
Site distance.
Site
But they're
distance
defining it as being 24 feet. They're not saying an engineer will determine what the sightline triangle should be.
It's right there.
They're saying it's 24 feet, period.
It's when in
Yeah.
19.3, it says within the triangle formed by a line connecting any two intersecting streets at a point 24 feet from their street line intersection.
They're calling it the sightline triangle. They're not saying an engineer will determine what it should be.
Should be 24 feet from the street line intersection in any property.
It's really far.
Any property where two streets intersect.
It's an 8-foot table. This is over 3 of these long,
This is not 8 feet.
No,
This is
that's.
5 feet.
5 feet. So you're looking at this entire distance.
Yeah, that's pretty far.
So that's, do you want to make the change?
Yeah, can we
proposed?
make it change?
Randolph?
Well, I'm gonna ask Commissioner Randolph. The sightline triangle does not have to be 24 feet. It could be whatever an engineer determines is proper for that intersection based on the,
That's what, so. Just going down this rabbit trail. Engineers have looked at this based upon average travel speed, so a sightline triangle is based upon the speed of the vehicle, so cars moving faster have to have a bigger triangle. Cars, so they've determined that 50 feet, well, it's more than 50 feet, it's 24 plus 24 plus the width of the road is the distance that's safe to see cars traveling. So if cars were going faster, that would have to be bigger because you need more space to see them. So this is basically, you're looking out on the road and you're seeing a car coming towards you. The engineers have determined that that's a reasonable distance to look out so you don't get deboned.
Which engineers?
Traffic engineers.
this is general rule of thumb, you're saying. It's not,
And this is industry practice.
not site specific.
Yeah,
Okay.
Industry practice.
But with the odd angled intersection, is that still logical to
They
have?
still have it, it's still viewed as a triangle and it's based upon the speed of the vehicle coming to determine the width of the sight lines.
If you have a home on a corner, it's safe to say you cannot fence in your front yard.
No, it's not safe to say that.
No, they're saying you have to chamfer the fence right there by 24 feet. Below 6, you can't have a 6-foot fence, you can have 42. So 42 inches this is 42 inches right here. Pretty high. Your dog fence. And deer fences are permitted.
I think the addition of new is great.
Okay, so the motion is amended to replace, to add the word new. Any additional comments?
I like the word or maintained in under section 19.3 removed, so it said shall not be placed. But I think or maintained, that's subjective, that could be they're painting it, they're trimming it within the triangle. I think maintained.
Yeah,
should be-
maintain has gotta come out.
Yeah.
Other comments? I'll just add, I'll just say, I mean, I think if this is a public safety issue, then I think it's a public safety issue. It's worth, and I'm not sure how an existing condition is more safe. I mean, if there's a difference between lowering a wall and lowering shrubbery, but I'm not sure why we would allow shrubbery hedges that are creating a public safety issue to remain just because they're an existing condition.
So I'm specifically looking at fences like I'm gonna use the wall on Mill Plain Road in Uncle. There's a stone wall with a fence above it. According to this, he would not be allowed to paint, power wash, or anything to do with that wall or fence. And I think that's unreasonable. And that's just one example. I've not had a chance to dig into this.
Yes,
Commissioner Delgado.
Actually.
Thank you.
to my understanding, so the word maintain, in my estimation, is really just about, right, plantings. So could it make sense to separate out what are plantings that would be maintained as opposed to structures that would be placed. And then we get rid of the ambiguity, but we maintenance, because I think it's still related to that.
But if you want to keep the shrubs at a certain height, they're gonna have to maintain them.
Correct.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Maintained also is defined as keeping something in existence. So that word should be defined if we're gonna use it, because it could mean just keeping it there.
Didn't you just,
I think it should come out, the word.
I thought you already took it out.
Yeah, oh, I know, yeah. Do
It
we
was
need a
it was
motion?
your motion and you,
Oh, yeah. I make a motion to take off the word or maintained.
well, you don't,
Okay.
it's not, you own the motion, I believe.
Oh, it's my
Commissioner
motion.
Yeah.
Okay, so I could just change my own motion without,
Unless there's objection.
okay. I see we have a rules person in here, Robert's rule. So I'm going to change my motion to add
New,
friendly amendment that Commissioner Randolph,
to add the
Okay.
language new, referring to
New.
new fences, and then I think.
and
the
to
two
take
words-
out the word or maintained.
A second.
I don't know if I have to,
No, I mean,
Okay.
you, the person who seconds
modifying my
should
own
be, yeah,
motion.
yeah. Okay, I mean, I don't know if there's a way to separate out more easily alterable structures. Again, I think if there's shrubbery, you take a hedge trimmer to it, it comes down to the height it needs to be, and we're talking about a public safety issue, so I think if there's a way to separate more easily modifiable items that are included in this as items that should be addressed, even if they are existing. I think we should do that, but
So what's your suggestion?
well, if you're open to it, I can think about language.
Yeah, I'm open to it. For more flexibility, you're saying?
I would say, I think you could just, I'm thinking, looking at 19.3, where it lists structure, fence, wall, shrubbery, tree, retaining wall, or other visual obstruction. You could take shrubbery out of there and then just have a separate sentence that says, existing shrubbery must be lowered to a conforming height.
Oh, you're changing it so that existing, it wouldn't be new, it would be existing.
That's what I was suggesting. It's easy to change, and we're talking about a public safety issue.
Huge tree.
I said shrubbery, not tree.
Okay.
Have we ever had an issue regarding this? And if so, where?
Yes.
And how do you enforce it? Did you say you have to cut it back?
Generally with shrubbery, it extends into the public right of way, so if it's, because, it's an organic matter that gets larger than one size. And so if it extends into the public right of way, then the engineering department can go out and request that they then lower the height within the obstructed view of the public right of way based on a traffic safety issue. So this has come up before.
Up to you if you want to.
Yeah, I'd rather just keep it the way it is with the two small things we did, new and, taking away or maintained.
Okay, other comments? All right, let's put this to a vote. All those,
Yeah, I was just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
gonna ask,
I didn't see
does
that.
that pose an issue for compliance over time to not have that language in, that it should be maintained so they can't be cited?
that poses a compliance issue
Um,
if we don't have the word maintained in there.
I mean, again, I think it's a public safety issue, so, if we, even if it's organic material that we want to limit to 42 inches in height, so again, somebody doesn't get T-boned, I think we should maintain that shrubbery height. It's a clear standard.
Commissioner Randolph?
So I think the question is, do we want to allow people to maintain a dangerous condition? Right? that's-
Perceived dangerous condition.
You're
No, it's
saying
not true.
shrubbery is
I'm
different.
sorry,
24
I've
feet
got,
back
I've
from
got the floor.
intersection.
No, they're saying shrubbery is different because it grows. I think
Go ahead,
that's what you're
Commissioner
So we're
saying.
Reynolds.
speaking through the
I'm
chair
sorry.
or?
Go ahead, Commissioner Reynolds.
So, I think that to allow the maintenance of a dangerous condition is irresponsible. Because as I said, I've got a corner with this condition. And it's a dangerous corner and I need to maintain my vegetation, so the sight lines are there and it grows every year and I gotta cut it down, so, but it is a dangerous condition. And this is not being suggested irresponsibly or willfully. This is something that traffic engineers look at on every project. They look at it on my projects, and this is a real issue. And I'm glad no one has personal experience with it, but cars do get T-boned. Kids come shooting out on scooters and you don't see them. This is a real, and more kids are riding these electric scooters. And I'm surprised that we haven't had more injuries, but we're allowing a condition that encourages, that reduces safety. And this is trying to address it. And it's not a perceived issue, it is a real issue.
So there are multiple properties through you.
Go ahead.
Commissioner. There are multiple properties along Mill Plain Road specifically, and I'm not looking at any other properties. I'm looking at the one on going up to Hill Farm Road on the corner. There's a lot of large Western arborvitaes in the front blocking someone's windows so that they don't have streetlights coming in their windows. And it's very beautifully done. A landscape designer did it, and they're very tall. They're probably 15 feet. You go down, I believe it's Robert Court. There's a whole line of trees all the way around the intersection. There are stop signs. So 24 feet when there's a stop sign. So I'm all the way back here with a tree for lack of, and I'm a tree here. You're telling me I have to be taken down to 3 feet because it's affecting the sight line up there. I think that's excessive. So I think to tell someone they have to take down their beautiful mature trees that are not, they're no way dangerous is completely an overreach. I can see it closer on it when there's a stop sign. It should be 15 feet, but 24 feet, I think is excessive.
I would just, for the record, strongly disagree with the statement that it's in no way dangerous. I mean, I think I've certainly come to intersections where there are arborvitaes that go up to the corner. I find it extremely dangerous to have to poke out and try to see what's coming around the corner.
Under this, we're telling them they have to take them out and they can't maintain them. They have to cut them all back. These are 25 feet row of trees along street lines. That is an overreach. If it was dangerous, I could see the town saying something to them. They probably already have said something to them, but these, using the math, the 24 by 24 from the street lines, that's gonna affect a massive.
That's not the
number of
motion right now.
properties.
The motion was amended, so the motion does not impact existing
But it kind of,
existing structures and
But you
the word
can't
maintained.
maintain.
No, the word maintained, Commissioner Braun removed that also.
then what is Commissioner Randolph saying? Because,
He's disagreeing with it,
Oh.
but you own the
Oh.
motion, so the
Okay.
motion is to nonetheless restrict this to new structures and to remove the word maintained.
okay, but Commissioner Randolph put in the word new structures, but leaving the word maintained in.
So
means
you own the motion. You already decided that you wanted to remove the word maintained. Commissioner Monahan, who seconded
Yes.
it, also agreed with that. So that's the motion. The motion includes this language without the word maintained in it.
Right, I'm
That's
trying
what
to
the
understand
document-
Commissioner
Separate out
Randolph's
properly.
position, because if Commissioner Randolph suggested it only applies to new, but he wants to keep the word maintained in, then it's really
But
applying to new.
That
and
was his
existing.
suggestion. You did not accept that suggestion, so that's not the motion right now. The motion does not include it strikes the word maintained.
Right.
You made the motion. That was your motion, was to strike
I
the word
just, I'm
maintained.
trying to
So that's
understand what
we're
Commissioner
considering.
Randolph is saying, because,
My point, want me to state it again?
yes, please.
So, okay, so I was just looking at Robert Court. If you look at Robert Court, Mill Plain
I'm
Road.
not sure if that's exactly the name of the
well,
street,
you-
but yes.
You named
I'm
that
saying
street.
I believe it's that
I'm
street.
sorry, but you named that
All
street.
right, let's, enough
so-
crosstalk, please.
Right, so I'm concerned that maintaining a dangerous condition with vegetation is irresponsible.
Powder horn. A powder horn? Is that off Mill Plain Road?
Go ahead, hang on. Commissioner Randolph. has the floor.
I'm concerned that maintaining a dangerous condition for vegetation, which is easily trimmed back, moved, replanted, is something we should address. And maintaining that is something and for new fences, I get it, we're not gonna ask people to eliminate existing structures. We're gonna ask them to make sure any structural improvements comply. We're not asking them to change structures, but vegetation is easily cut down, moved, and replanted. So I think the word maintain should stay in there for that reason.
So the word new doesn't matter.
The word new applies to any new structures.
Okay.
The word maintain applies to maintaining a dangerous condition. I don't think we should allow the maintenance of a dangerous condition.
Well, nothing in here says dangerous condition.
This is based upon the recommendation of the engineering department, who are qualified engineers who have determined that this is a safer solution, and that's why they've suggested it.
I guess my point is, if you're putting the word new in, you're saying this regulation would only apply to new projects. But if you're leaving in the word maintained, then that means it applies to all existing structures.
Maintaining vegetation, not structures.
Well, this doesn't say maintaining vegetation. This says maintain. It could mean painting a fence.
So
Maybe there should be something in here where the engineering department determines that it's not safe the way it's placed.
that's what this is a recommendation. This is,
This is a,
Let
across
me
the
just say
board.
this, if this motion passes, the current motion removes the word maintained and adds the word new, unless Commissioner Braun changes
that's my
that.
motion.
That's the motion that's on the table.
Yeah.
If that motion fails, I believe this whole section is just not adopted. And so, Commissioner Randolph, if you have proposed amendments to this, my recommendation would be to make a motion now, because I don't think it could be.
so my
anything
friend,
could be
my
adopted,
friend,
amended later.
my friendly amendment is to, so no structure, fence, wall, shrubbery, tree, retaining wall, which exceeds 3 feet in height or the road shall be placed, or perhaps we should say, or vegetation. And vegetation shall not be maintained within the triangle.
He's a co-host.
Shrubbery, tree, shrubbery. So after the word placed, we should say, or no shrubbery or trees shall be maintained within the triangle.
Pass that without having more of a hearing on this.
I think that significantly changes this. I honestly, this is what has been proposed from from January,
This-
and we're making changes to it now.
This does not this significantly changes your motion. It does not significantly change the language that is in here. The current language that's in what was noticed and went through a public hearing says no structure shall be placed or maintained within the triangle. So this certainly is not expanding the proposed regulation and scope. It is limiting it. So are you?
That's my-
so you're-
that's
I'm
my
sorry, can
friendly
you
re- that's-
Can you restate that,
Yeah,
please?
so under 19.3, we all there?
Yep.
It says no structure, fence, wall, shrubbery, tree, retaining wall, or other visual obstruction which exceeds 3 feet in height above the road level shall be placed, or no shrubbery, tree shall be maintained within the triangle.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So I'm limiting the maintenance to shrubberies or trees.
And no shrubbery or trees shall be maintained.
Correct.
I just can't even believe you're.
Exceeding is height. of-
Yes, yeah.
But no, I
Exceeding
thought we
height of
just
3.
determined that a dogwood is not obstructing, but that's part of this. It says tree.
Well,
So like you could have a little tiny, like there's a little tiny Japanese maple at where my folks' old house, it's like this wide. That has to come down too. It's like 2 inches wide. That seems a little,
it visually obstructs the corner and it's a shrub or a tree, it has to be moved or cut down. That's what. I'm
well, this
proposing.
says, this does not say it has to visually obstruct, it just has to be a tree.
Exceeds 3 feet in
Right.
height above the road level.
But it could be skinny. and not obstructing.
Sorry, any guidance on that specific?
I think we have to do some wordsmithing on this.
I think you had indicated previously that the intent was not to, there's a dogwood that is exceeding that height on the corner to remove that, but it's more about continuous
Correct.
arborvitae's
screening.
and shrubbery and whatnot.
Correct.
Do you think shrubbery covers arborvitae, trees like that are kind of consecutive, contiguous?
Correct.
And therefore wouldn't require the word tree in that to be added to that specific piece?
I mean, arborvitae, if let go, can get quite tall, but I think, again, the regulation is really intended to maintain visibility at corners to prevent accidents.
I guess my question is really about the specific language, trying to balance not wanting arborvitae's and shrubs above the exceeding the height on the corners, but not necessarily taking down a mature tree that may not be visual.
I think the difference between a singular tree with a trunk is you can probably inch up slightly in order to see past it, especially if it's not something that is broad at its base, like an evergreen type situation. But, if you've got arborvitae next to arborvitae next to arborvitae next to arborvitae, there's no way to inch around that. So I think the intention is something that is going to completely obstruct one's view, not something that can be looked around.
But 24 feet is not obstructing one's view if you're parked in a car waiting to make a turn. That's 2 car lengths or 3 car lengths,
It's 1 car length.
24 feet.
Correct. A standard parking space is 9 by 18. So
Does-
that's approximately 1. You're not going to be bumper to bumper with somebody in front of you. So generally that 24 feet is going to be 1 car that's inched up to the intersection, right?
I think that's at least 2 feet, at least 2 cars.
I do think, because we're talking about obstruction, when we have that phrase obstruction is separated from the rest of the categories with a comma, and then it says, or other visual obstruction. What it really should say is no structure, fence, wall, shrubbery, tree, retaining wall that visually obstructs, which exceeds 3 feet. We're really talking about, some might not obstruct, I suppose. It could be would a split rail fence obstruct if it's more than 3 feet tall? I don't think so.
Well, you're allowed to go 42 inches within that
This is
view.
3 feet.
Yeah.
It's
It
3.
does
says
say
3
there is a
feet.
reference to 3 feet,
3.5.
19.3.
19.4, it's.
Just don't think it's
There
fair
might be
to tell.
types of fences or a skinny tree that does not obstruct that is taller than 3 feet. And so this gets rid of everything and it doesn't allow you to even maintain it, meaning keep it. So it seems to me like we have to do a little wordsmithing. Can we just carve some of this out? I guess that would be hard to do because that's what the whole regulation is about, but I'd like to see if we could find better language for this and maybe come back next week when we have our planning session and perfect it. I mean, I think we do need a public safety regulation, so we don't have obstructions, but this is too broad and it's a little bit vague as well.
I don't think it's fair to do something and knock on someone's door and say you have to completely take down all the trees because the Planning and Zoning Commission decided to pass a regulation. And now you have to completely re-landscape first 24 feet of both sides of your front yard. And that's what's going to happen in a lot of
I
cases.
mean, I will, if I can, through you, Mr. Chair. I will say that there have been problematic intersections in town that have repeat crash data where the town has gone out to that property owner and said, listen, you keep having T-bone accidents in front of your property. We need to get an easement from you as a property owner to reduce the height of whatever you've got going on in that corner. That has occurred within Fairfield where the town has actively had to go to a property owner to revise what's happening at that corner because there is an identified hazard and repeat accident occurrence. So that's occurred. This is to prevent that from having to get to a point where people end up in crashes.
I just think the language could be tightened up and be we're talking about arborvitae's, that's not what it says. It says any shrubbery, any tree, anything. So it could be a skinny little tree that never grows more than 3 inches wide, that has to come down. So I think it's just overly broad and needs to be tightened, the language needs to be tightened. There's a way of doing it. Okay, I agree with doing it, but I don't think this is the right way to do it. If we can come back next week during our planning session, we could probably have the language tightened up. I'll try to come up with language myself, or I'll work with the other commissioners offline, but this is too broad. And it's not talking about a roll of arborvitae's. It's saying shrubbery. That could mean anything. It could be a forsythia bush that's not that you could see through, or some small little shrub.
So Commissioner Randolph.
It's Commissioner Braun's motion.
Yeah, but you were maybe or maybe not making a motion to amend. I can't tell, couldn't tell if that was.
Yeah, so I did make a
formal
motion.
motion.
I did make a motion to amend to add the word new. And then, say maintain shrubbery.
Let me try to recap what I had taken note of your comment before. No new structure, fence, wall, shrubbery, tree, retaining wall, or other visual obstruction which exceeds. And I would suggest to add 3.5 feet in height, because I think that was.
Actually, so it's 3.5 feet adjacent to driveways. It's 3 feet at the intersections. I was incorrect earlier.
Okay,
Okay, so that was intentional. Which exceeds 3 feet in height above the road shall be placed, and no shrubbery shall be maintained within the triangle formed by a line. Same as is.
Correct.
Okay, so your motion is to amend
Yes, my motion is to.
per that, and then I think there was one other instance where Commissioner Braun pointed out the word new
Yeah,
was
so-
to be added.
Any, under 19.1.1A, said any new individual fence, stone wall. So.
Okay, actually, I think
the word any.
Commissioner Braun had already indicated
I
that.
thought new was gonna be like 19.3.
Well, there were two instances. I think
Oh,
you had
okay.
said it would
Yeah.
need to be added to both.
I agree with adding the new.
Right, the motion, you had previously already amended the motion to add the word new to the two
Mhm.
locations. Commissioner Randolph is moving to amend it to add the language and no shrubbery shall be maintained. So it's specifying, so it's keeping the maintenance language, but only with regards to shrubbery.
They can grow wild.
No, it's the opposite, that shrubbery must be maintained. Commissioner Braun had moved the word maintain. Commissioner Randolph is
I
moving
think we
to,
have to define what
add it
maintain,
back.
maintain can mean two things. It can mean kept in existence or maintained, pruning, painting, whatever. Also.
But you're not gonna paint a bush. We're talking about shrubbery.
and no shrubbery shall be retained.
Maintained. Right, so we're, the
You can,
maintenance,
keep right, because you could keep it as long as it's under the.
yeah, the
height.
maintenance is you can't maintain shrubbery above 3 feet. That's the suggestion.
And no shrubbery shall be maintained.
Yeah.
Which exceeds 3 feet in height.
And then what about trees?
We said shrubbery, we reeled it
Shrubbery
back to
only,
shrubbery,
which I
yeah.
think Just said you.
Purposely leaving trees out of it.
It already says a tree cannot exceed 3 feet.
You just can't trim the 9-foot tree along the corner. But
Well,
you're
they're
allowed-
leaving trees out of the equation entirely, so it's shrubbery.
No new trees. And this doesn't address existing trees.
Okay, what about if a tree grows, but it's not new?
Got to keep it less than 3 feet.
Pardon me?
You've got to keep it less than 3 feet.
I don't think so. If it says new trees, you can't plant a tree higher than 3 feet, but it could grow on its own.
Right, but you cannot maintain, meaning you can't have on your property, maintaining means having something, sustaining something on your property, anything above 3 feet, shrub.
I thought shrub, tree is not a shrub.
That's
Right,
what I
this
just said,
doesn't
shrub.
address Trees,
So
existing trees.
shrubs
You can't
cannot
put
be
it, just,
kept in existence over three.
let's use the layman's terms. You can't put a hedge in that
Okay.
exceeds 3 feet. You can't
Okay.
allow your hedge to go above 3 feet
Okay.
in the side triangle.
And a tree would this only would relate to new trees. So a tree could grow to 20 feet and that would not violate this.
We can talk about the oak tree that's on the corner.
Any tree.
The 200-year oak tree, we didn't talk about that one, but you know, it's a different.
I see what you're saying. You're saying, I think you're talking about a loophole where someone could plant a 2-foot tree that eventually gets higher.
All
than-
trees do grow
Right,
eventually.
no, I understand.
A lot of people at intersections put trees up to block the lights coming in their windows. So this is just essentially saying that they're not gonna be ever able to do that.
Correct.
You have to be closer to your house, I guess, but yeah.
And they're not gonna be able to fence off in a linear way, the fence in the front of their yard. And if there are beautiful 25-foot trees in the front, if they die, they're not gonna be able to replace them.
Correct. Just in that corner.
Just in a 24 by 24
Right.
cut
Yep.
corner.
Could
which
you
is the
read,
Entire front yard of most properties.
Like,
Mr.
this is
Randall, can
like
you
your
read
field
the
view,
entire 19.3 the way
that way.
you proposed to amend
They're
it?
in the triangle.
They have
Sorry.
acres and acres.
Could you just read 19.3 the way you propose? We'll read with all the amendments.
No new structure, fence, wall, shrubbery, tree, retaining wall, or other visual obstruction which exceeds 3 feet in height above the road level shall be placed, and no shrubbery shall be maintained which exceeds 3 feet in height within the triangle formed by a line connecting, the rest is as
Okay.
is.
Good.
I'm good with that.
Commissioner Monahan?
Still think the 24 feet is for a lot of the smaller parcels and smaller side streets in town. A lot of times that can be most of the front yard and or the side yard. And I
Just
think
with
it's-
just this specific modification, which doesn't include that, or any objection to that?
So if a fence fell down and had to be replaced, would that then,
42 inches.
They would have
Oh,
to, they would have to reconfirm.
Intersections.
I'm sorry,
I was incorrect earlier. It's 36 inches at the intersections.
36 inches.
and if a fence had to be replaced, so if you have a fence that exceeds this now, that stays, but it's a non-conforming. So on what circumstance would it not be able to be repaired, replaced, or restored? If it completely falls down? Half the value or?
So oftentimes what happens is somebody will maintain a fence in place. When we end up with change in property ownership and a fence is in disrepair, a property owner will call and say, are there fence requirements? I have a fence that's in ill repair. What can I replace? And then we will provide them with this instruction.
Rarely call about fences.
Oh, people call all the time, all the time.
But could you so you could not you could repair a fence, you just couldn't replace a fence under this new regulation, if it's over that height.
Usually people will call when they have to replace something.
But this regulation would prevent them from replacing it over 3 feet within that,
We would provide them with that standard at that time.
but you could repair a fence, you just couldn't replace a fence.
Most people will repair
Does
it.
the regulation allow us to repair a fence, but not replace a fence?
So if the wind blows and you have a section of fence that falls down, most people will repair that, right?
Would that be allowed?
Right now, that's maintaining your fence.
So this new regulation that we might adopt would allow you to repair a section that falls down, even if it's over 3 feet.
As currently proposed.
24 feet from the intersection.
Under what circumstance would you not be able to do it? Just replacing the whole entire fence then?
Generally speaking, when they go to replace that entire fence, sometimes people will say, I'm not sure this is on my property line. Do you have a survey? They'll come in to talk to us about it and we'll say, sure, you can replace your fence, but just know that we have this standard and you're gonna have to replace it in this way. So actually, people call about fences a lot. And so this is a way to ensure that we are both allowing them to provide a fence around their property, but also making sure that we don't end up with these unfortunate accidents in the neighborhoods.
So repairing is different than replacing.
Yes.
Okay.
Any further?
All those in favor of the motion to approve the regulations with the amended language? Wait for this again.
No, you read it.
Please raise your hand. Okay, motion, is that a yes? All those opposed? Motion passes 6-1. And finally, In old business, section 36, definitions, add definition for fences and walls.
We're gonna table the, if I can make a request to table that until we address the other regulation as well. I think that was the intent.
Okay, but not to a date certain.
No, just.
All right, can I have a motion to postpone section 36 indefinitely? Posey,
I motion to postpone section 36 indefinitely.
thank you. Do I have a second? Delgado seconds. Those in favor? Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. On public hearings, we'll start with a continuation of hearing on a zoning regulation amendment and application by attorney Christopher Russo on behalf of 1477 Congress Street LLC for a proposed new section 10.19 age-restricted housing district within the designed residence district to permit an age-restricted multifamily development of no more than 5 dwelling units per acre on sites that are a minimum of 1 acre located within 1,500 feet of an on-ramp to the Merritt Parkway, provides proposed application requirements and site plan standards. Thanks, Attorney Russo.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission, Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzio LLC, offices at 10 Sesco Hill Road in Fairfield, here on behalf of the applicant. I'll be brief, Chair, because I went through most of this presentation last time. And I know Attorney Green's got to speak. I submitted some additional information based at this discussion at our last public hearing. So that's all I'm gonna kind of go through with this. The first is Commissioner Braun, I know you wanted to see a wetlands map of this area. So I submitted a map from the town GIS with the wetlands overlay showing the area between Black Rock Turnpike and Easton Turnpike, which was really the area where this amendment applies. You can see pockets of wetlands, particularly down near the Merritt. There's several different pockets. I will say, you know, the overlay that you find on the GIS is sometimes accurate, sometimes not. There's areas of wetlands I see that aren't in that dark brown. And then I know from the next map I'm going to show you that there's some areas where the boundaries aren't correct. So to that effect, I submitted the wetlands delineation plan that I have for 1477 Congress Street. This application is obviously for an amendment. So this is really just submitted as an example of what could be submitted as part of a zone change application for an ARHD. Because I do think it's appropriate when this commission is reviewing a zone change for something like that to consider the resources on site.
Would it be possible to put this up on the screen so we could all see it? I mean,
I submitted them, yeah, electronically.
they're submitted. I see one here.
Again, we could submit a plan like this when you're doing a zone change. I think it's appropriate to detail the resources and have an applicant show that there is a potential area for development and where the wetlands resources are on the property. I will say again, the proposed section 19.4 in these regulations require conceptual site plan to be submitted as part of the zone change application. So this commission you could, you know, request a plan like this that shows something like the wetlands resources. But the commission would also review a plan, a conceptual site plan to see if it's even feasible for units to be constructed here along with the required septic system. So to that end, I submitted a conceptual site plan, again, for 1477 Congress Street, purely as an example, because this is not a site-specific application. And something like this could be submitted, you know what, I'm sorry. This one is the
Is that
first.
the existing house?
Yeah, that's the existing house. So I'm sorry. Here's the second one. That's at the actual conceptual.
Where are the wetlands flags and the?
So the wetlands flags are right here and then down here as well. So,
There's a septic system?
so the septic system, you know, and again, this is something you would get in a conceptual site plan is, here's the tank right here. Here's, the leaching field. And then Commissioner Monahan, you pointed this out last time, that you not only have to show the leaching field, but you also have to show the reserve. And so this shows the reserve as well.
That's the reserve for the entire development,
For the entire development, yeah.
bedrooms?
And that was based on soil testing. So that's the other thing that would be able to be, I think, discussed when you have a conceptual site plan, which is how much, you know, how much does it actually yield? You're gonna do soil testing to understand what, you know, how much system you can actually put in, and then how much would yield. So, you know, for instance, on this plan, it could support 16 bedrooms, that system. So that's, I think, the type of information that you would get on a conceptual site plan. You know, septic really controls number of bedrooms. That's kind of what drives the sizing of the system. So, you know, whether somebody was doing, you know, certain number of studios and 2 bedrooms, it's really kind of driven by how much septic capacity, how many bedrooms could be handled on it. And I think those are the types of things that can be discussed, you know, at that stage of applications. And so on that point, you know, there was this talk about septic systems handling multifamily developments. I submitted a report. If you don't have copies, I have it, but I submitted it online. It's an excerpt from a document entitled Sewer and Septic Infrastructure Report, which was prepared by the Connecticut Open Communities Alliance, which is a Connecticut civil rights nonprofit who's focused on creating inclusive housing opportunities throughout the state. And I submitted you an excerpt of it. If you want the full report, I'm happy to submit it in for the record. I just, rather than bury you in paper, I kind of went to the point on these. So the article, the report does outright state that multifamily housing can be safely built in areas not served by public water and sewer without hurting the environment. They give an example of Woodbury, which doesn't have sewer and water, and has 20% of its housing as multifamily with at least 3 units. It also discusses Connecticut health standards, where on-site septic systems can be suitable for a volume of up to 7,500 gallons per day, which is roughly equivalent to 50 residential bedrooms, which are numbers of density that I don't think we're really close to discussing with this amendment. And I know Commissioner Capozzi, you discussed, you know, maybe the uniqueness of having multiple units on the same system. And this report comments that a community septic system can be an efficient and effective waste treatment system that allows multiple users to connect to a shared septic tank or field, thus allowing for smaller lot and cluster development that can preserve open space and wildlife habitat. Now, yes, you do have to run it properly, but I'll reiterate a point that I made at the last hearing, which is if it isn't running properly, it affects multiple people. So I think it's incentivized for them to address if there's any issue. And almost all approvals that you grant require some level of maintenance, whether it's maintenance of stormwater systems, landscaping, pervious pavement areas. This would be the same. They'd have an ongoing obligation to maintain their septic system. It would be a part of their approval. I know there was some question. I made a comment of the benefits that septic has over sewer systems. So I submitted the EPA's discussion on septic systems. I have that too as a handout if you need it, but I submitted it online. And as you can see in that handout, it says the EPA finds that septic systems can protect public health, preserve valuable water resources, and maintain economic vitality in a community. In terms of public health benefits, the EPA finds that septic systems reduce the risk of disease transmission and human exposure to pathogens, which can occur through drinking water, surface water, and shellfish bed contamination. And lastly, the EPA notes that there are environmental benefits to septic systems, and this is what I focused on at the last hearing, which namely that they remove pollution from surface water and recharge groundwater and replenish aquifers. I think there's a misperception out there that sewer systems are a plus to septic systems in almost all regards, and that sewer systems are the only suitable system to have multifamily units on, and I just don't think that's true. Regarding that last note, I had made a comment that septic systems can return 85% of the groundwater withdrawn to the groundwater system that I had learned during a recent application I had in Monroe. Commissioner Monahan, I think you asked me where I had gotten that. So I submitted, again, an excerpt from the report. I'm happy to submit the whole thing, but again, I didn't want to bury you in pages upon pages of a report.
I'll have to read it.
You want the whole thing? Yeah, okay, sure, I'll submit it. But that did, if you looked at that excerpt, it said that they anticipated 85% of the water going back into the system. So that's just, one of the benefits of a septic system. Last, I will just say I submitted, because I was using a map that was from the state regarding connected sewer service areas. There's actually, we got from WPCA, we finally able to get from them a map that show, oh, sorry, you know what? Town's this way. There we go. There's the town. This is more detailed, and it's just, I think especially when you pull it up online, it's easier to discern exactly where the sewer lines are. So this, all the green is where currently connected sewer service areas. Again, you can see there's a large chunk of town which is not serviced by sewers. And, as I stated at the last hearing, that section of town has, for the most part, not had to shoulder any of the burden of meeting the housing demand for the town. And I'm not saying that we should go ahead and open up that entire area. That's not what this amendment does. But I do think that septic systems can handle more density than just single-family houses. Frankly, I know some single-family dwellings in these septic areas that have more bedrooms and bathrooms than small multifamily developments do. And in this application, we're talking about a septic area where the ARHD would be on a collector road and in close proximity or in between two state highways that are themselves major collectors in the town and in close proximity to the Merit. So I think this is an area that we're talking about with this ARHD. It is an area that is serviced by septic. But I think it's an area that's significantly different than the rest of the septic areas of town. And I think it's a place that can handle more density than single family housing. I know Attorney Green has comments to make. There was, I will say though, there was a comment about spot zoning. I believe it was one of the residents who made it. Spot zoning is sort of becoming obsolete. An analysis of whether something was spot zoning used to be that you would look at whether it only affected a small area. There was a case, Langer versus P&Z Commission of Westport from 1972 that discussed that. But that was more situations where you have something like a sea of residence A, and then it's proposed that one property in the middle of a block be residence B, and it's fulfilling no discernible planning goal. That is spot zoning. But case law now has, I think, moved away from that, where it's more an analysis of your POCD and whether the zoning and the regulations that you're proposing, are they in line with the POCD? And now you see, I mentioned this last time, planned development districts in Shelton, where it's just one property and they come up with regulations for one property, gets its own set. And those have been upheld in court. So I think, again, every regulation doesn't have to involve 5,000 possible properties. I mean, it can be tailored to a specific area as long as it's consistent with your comprehensive plan. And I don't want to rehash every instance in the POCD that I pointed out in the first hearing. But you lived your POCD, and it repeatedly discusses the need to provide housing for elderly persons and provide a diversity of housing options for elderly persons. And this amendment, I think, will attract that type of development. This regulation, no properties approved as an ARHD by this amendment being approved, you could end up approving 0 properties to fall within that designation. But allow someone to submit a zone change application, submit a conceptual plan, talk with you about the wetlands on the property, talk to you about a conceptual septic system, where it would be located, its reserve area, its capacity, et cetera. That's what this amendment does. It just allows the opportunity. The only other thing to add on to that is I did submit, he's not here, but Commissioner Levy had a question of where did 55 come from? And that is the 55 years of age come from. I believe that originates from the Housing for Older Persons Act of 1995. I submitted that amendment so you could look at it. Again, Fair Housing Act says you cannot discriminate based on age, but there's an exemption, which is HOPA, that act, and says you're allowed to do that for 50 folks, for communities that are for 55 years of age and older. They're called active adult communities. You may have seen 62 plus communities, which is another subset of PA. But in those, everyone in the family has to be over 62, not just one person. Those are senior living communities. This is different. We're more like the active adult communities, which is one person has to be 55 years or over. So that's why it's 55 and not 56, 57. That's where I think the number originates from. So those are the materials I submitted. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Braun?
Yeah, so basically, my memory from the last
Mhm.
time we were here, there's basically 6 properties that this would apply to right now, unless you
Right now,
consolidate
unless somebody joined them.
between Sport Hill Road and Black Rock Turnpike on the north side of the Merritt Parkway, I believe.
Yeah, but Easton Turnpike and in Black Rock Turnpike, yeah. Because Park Avenue is not a state highway.
Oh,
Surprisingly, it's not.
and that's all septic, I believe.
A lot of that area is septic. There is some, it's tough to show. I
All
could-
of those 6 properties are septic. but-
No, those properties that we reduced it to are septic.
Yep.
But this is Congress Street. Congress Street runs south of the Merritt here.
Mhm,
There's a little part that juts out on Congress and then comes down.
mhm.
And then Congress Street then switches to the north side of the Merritt.
Is that where Sport Hill Road goes into it?
Sport is over here. Sorry, it's over here.
But it has to be within X amount of.
It has to be of here
Of an
and
entrance,
of here. So yeah, that mainly those properties were confined to this area between Easton Turnpike and Black Rock Turnpike.
So I guess my concern is that whole stretch is filled with wetlands and brooks and rivers that all end up in Mill River watershed, I believe.
Right, and I think it's part of submitting to you for a zone change. Again, I think those are some of the questions that can be asked. And I think the applicant's experts would have to come talk to you and say, we could put a septic system on here, and maybe even the wetlands would come and say, why they think it's safe to have a septic system here, and not endanger the wetlands. But I think that's all part of the zone change.
Can you tell me again, what is the density that's would be allowed by this regulation?
5 units per acre.
And how many would be allowed on 1477?
9,
Overall 2 acres, right?
9 units would be allowed.
Are all the properties 2 acres, all 6 of them?
Not every property, no, they're not all 2 acres.
That's not
Some
all
of them
of
are
them.
undersized, yeah.
So this is 2 acres.
The DR,
This is not 2 acres. Is this,
the ARHD that we're proposing would be for properties that are 1 acre.
okay, so the size of this one would allow 9. So that would require communal septic. That would not.
That would, yeah, all the units would be serviced by.
So I read the literature that was provided, but that was provided by Open Communities Alliance, which is a multifamily housing advocacy group that
Nonprofit,
allows
yep.
Hartford for laws like fair share and things like that. So.
And they're,
take it with a
and
grain
they're,
of salt.
you know, they're,
Yeah.
if you look at the report, they're sourcing for their statements in there.
saw, yeah.
And,
Well,
you know, and I think,
Yeah.
you know, there are multifamily developments on septic in the state of
and
Connecticut.
I've heard of horror stories as well, because private maintenance, I live in a condo and they go
Mhm.
for the cheapest thing possible. We had an example of Success Village, that's a co-op actually, which didn't have boilers for 6 months and, you know, horrible
Oh,
problems.
I know that.
That happens. It's not.
I know that application,
It's
yes.
not public, so things go wrong, and when they fail really badly, and we're talking about pretty much the headwaters of Mill River, which is concerning.
And again, I think that when somebody comes to apply for a zone change, I think those questions are appropriate and are appropriate. And so, you know, whoever the soil scientist does on it, whoever the engineers on it, we have to speak to this commission and say, you know, we feel there's enough protections here
But this,
to ensure that that it doesn't get degraded.
well, this regulation really right now only applies to 6 properties between Eastern Turnpike and Black Rock Turnpike, all in areas filled with wetlands and rivers. And all would require probably communal septic if they needed to use this regulation.
Yeah.
That, and so the regulation itself is problematic, isn't it?
No, I mean,
Why don't we wait till application comes
I
in?
don't think that, again, I don't think regulations necessarily have to be confined or have to be broad and apply in large areas. I think we can look at this one area. There's something very unique about it. It's located between 2 state highways, not a lot of areas, and it's very close to the Marriott, obviously. And so, it's unique. And if somebody else wants to come in here in the future, maybe me again, maybe Attorney Fallon, and say, you have this ARHD regulation, we think it's also appropriate over here. They can come to you and they can, you know, submit an analysis just like I am. The commission would not be obligated to expand it any further than it is. But I think looking at this area, you know, again, if you look at this map, not all septic areas are the same. And I think this one is especially unique given its connectivity to the town.
It sounds
Commissioner
unique.
Randolph.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Yes, thanks for providing the Open Communities Alliance report. I guess as Commissioner Braun has pointed out, they're a housing advocacy group. And their focus was, I mean, I think they talked about Woodbury primarily in here.
Yeah, Woodbury's the town that they reference, yes.
What percentage of Woodbury, if you remember, has sewers?
Zero.
Zero.
Understanding what is in it.
So this was really designed to advocate housing in communities that had no sewers, correct?
Well, I think it used them as an example, but are you trying to say that they were only saying this should apply to towns without sewer and not towns that
I'm
were?
not saying only,
towns that were
the
mixed?
focus on this was to encourage communities that had no sewer to consider putting multifamily in because it could work.
It could work and septic areas can work and telling you,
Whereas towns that have extensive sewer systems, you missed a couple of pages in here. Do you have the full report?
oh yeah, I can submit the
Okay,
full.
so if you go to the full report could you go to page 3, please?
Oh, you want me to pull it up now? Yeah, sure.
Sorry, page 1.
It's gonna take me a second to full.
And then attorney, if I may, through you, Mr. Chair, Attorney Russo, if you could just submit that for the record.
Sure, happy to.
Has the perk test been done on this property yet?
Soil test, yeah, to design that system. CTOs, yeah.
You would put the map back also, because I thought I saw it's in flood zone X.
If you could answer my question first, that would be good.
Yeah.
It's the fourth page of the PDF, but it's numbered.
Yeah, sorry, I have the excerpt pulled out, but I just have to.
I can.
If you want to read it to me,
I can read it to you. So on page one, it says it goes through it's called the basics, and point number 3, it says, both sewers and septic systems are environmentally safe. However, by allowing for greater density, sewers do more to promote environmentally responsible development.
There's certainly advantages.
I'm reading what it says.
There's certainly advantages to sewer systems, but if you look at what I submitted with regards to the EPA, and what's in the balance of the report, it says that it's not, septic systems aren't the only place that can house multifamilies. And that's what I'm trying to argue in this. Now, the other thing too is sewers could definitely allow more density. If you had a site that had sewers on Congress Street, it could handle way more units than a septic system could. But that's why we're asking for reduced density.
I got one more question, but it says here, just to be clear, in the report you submitted, sewers do more to promote environmentally responsible development in the report you submitted. That's what it says. I'm reading it.
And again.
I'm not asking you to, I'm just saying that's what it says, okay?
Yeah, there are benefits to it, but again, I read sections of this that said that septic can also be.
Places like Woodbury, where there's no sewers, you can put in multifamily. That's what this report says. Okay, and then on page 3, it says at the bottom, it says, for that reason, while both sewer and septic systems with proper upkeep can be considered environmentally responsible, the development patterns required by septic systems on larger lots make it a less desirable choice from an environmental standpoint. This is from your report. I'm just reading. Okay. So I'd like to get that into the record.
Sure, I'm happy to add that to the record, but again.
And then also that this was focused on Woodbury that has no sewer systems. Okay, this report was for towns like Woodbury that have used sewer systems, absence of sewer systems to prevent multifamily specifically. This is trying to work around places I'll just say like Easton. No, so.
Well, because there are towns in Connecticut that have adopted essentially sewer avoidance policies to try to stop multifamily housing from spreading. And again, I mentioned this is,
Avoidance
Oh,
policy.
another time.
but by removing this large area of the town from having some type of multifamily, again, the burden is just being borne by the area that's in green. And I think this isn't saying 12 units per acre like your normal DRD. This is saying gentler density at 5 units per acre can be handled on a site that's serviced by septic. And you know, that same report, which is why I submitted, it says that multifamily housing can be safely built in areas not served by public water and sewer without hurting the environment.
Two questions. Has the town of Easton been notified of this proposed regulation? I assume they must have, because I think they have to be if it's within, is this within 500 feet of the town of Easton? I think we have to notify them if we're changing regulations that could affect the abutting town. Well, that's a question you don't have to answer.
Yeah, and,
The other thing is there a reason why this regulation only applies? It's confusing. It says
Excuse me.
the properties that would be subject to this are located within 1,500 feet of a state highway. That would mean like Eastern Turnpike,
Eastern Turnpike,
not
correct.
the Merritt, excluding I-95 and the Merritt, but it also has to have a proposed, I'm sorry, it has to be within 1,500 feet of an on-ramp to the Merritt. So it's not going to be near I-95 at all. This is specifically for near an entrance ramp to the Merritt Parkway.
Correct.
know,
And
it was like
that,
a tenth of
the
a
reason
mile.
why it's so specific is this wasn't the first time I submitted this amendment. I had submitted an earlier version that encompassed a much larger area. And I think it got difficult to understand because if you're looking at Post Road and you're looking at I-95, it's a much larger area. And so this narrowed it down to focus in on one area and show why we think this particular area is appropriate.
So why are
it
we
pins
picking
it
near the
to-
merit? Why are we picking near the merit entrance ways, access points?
Because it's a septic area, and wanted to locate this type of housing close to a state highway. Something that would be convenient for these age-restricted developments, that they're near there. But again, also to, so this doesn't look like it's such a monumental shift. Target to an area which we think makes sense. Because the other thing too is there's other developments in this area. There's Greenfield Hunt, there's Somerset, there's Stratfield Falls, which are a little bit higher density that are in this area already. So it's not completely out of character with what's around here.
The other concern I have, because I see Attorney Green is here, the historic thing. And I did my own research back when these things were coming up a couple of years ago. The Merritt Parkway is the largest historic asset in any town it runs through, including our town. And so this would allow, if you cobble together a couple of properties, a 20 unit massive building, 40 feet tall, up on a hill next to the Merritt Parkway, without much setback from the Merritt Parkway. How do you address that with the visual?
Well,
that you get?
that applicant would have to come to you, present the properties, and show you where they were located, show their relation to the Merritt Parkway, and then you can ask them how many units can this hold. And if you think it's too impactful, you could just not approve the ARHD. And then there,
It just seems like
it's your zone change, that's when you're at your legislative discretion. You have the greatest power that you have.
Commissioner Monahan.
Are they truly senior units, wide hallways, one floor living, like what, is really in need, or is this just like, are these really senior?
Well, 100% of the units would be restricted that way. I could tell you the concept we have is not just single floor. There are elevators, but it's not a single floor. Presenting a different housing option for people that fit that age range.
Any other questions? Anything else on your
I
end?
have another
I
question
can,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
about the flood zone. You're in the flood zone there. What percentage of the properties in the flood zone?
I'm not sure. I have to look. Let me get back to those. On this particular property. Yeah, because this is a conceptual plan. I don't think it lists the details about that, but that's,
And X.
yeah, let me see.
That's it in half.
Right, AE here, and then X, yeah, right. Nice, yep. I'm looking on the side for notes. So it would have to abide by all flood standards. And again, and those are the types of things that could be looked at when a zone change application will come. Just like the wetlands and the septic.
Where's the reserve? The reserve is to the left. of the
It's
building.
it's below, there's two gray parallel lines. The first is the one that would be active, and the one below it's the reserve.
I've
Doesn't
seen
say
a lot
res-
of septic systems and that looks really small. But okay.
I think in relation to the size, yeah, I think it's,
How many feet of leaching?
and remember, it's 16 bedrooms, so it's not, it's,
How many feet of leaching is that?
don't know the details how many linear feet it is. And that one, just so you know, on this one, this is just 8 units because there's already a septic system. You can see here, there's already a septic system for the existing house that's there. So that one is only supporting 8 units on it. But all information that would be provided, submit.
I'd like to get to Attorney Green, at least get him started.
Oh, it's 9:50.
Yeah, yeah, right. Time flies when we're having fun. All right, anything else on your?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney.
Sure.
Attorney Russo. Attorney Green, I'm guessing you have more than 10 minutes worth of
I didn't
there-
when I started, but based on the questions by the commission, I think I do. For the record, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission staff. My name is Joel Green. I practice on Bridgeport Law, Green Roads. It is, as always, my pleasure to appear before you this evening. And this evening I appear on behalf of the Merritt Parkway Conservancy. And as you're aware from my previous appearances, the Merritt Parkway Conservancy is dedicated to preserving the beauty and historic character of the Merritt Parkway, the award-winning and historic Merritt Parkway. And we all take it for granted. But if you take a moment to drive down the Merritt Parkway, they've done a great job of preserving and protecting vistas. And it is, as highways go, it's a beautiful road. And the Conservancy spends a great deal of time, effort, and expense on this mission. So I'm here tonight on behalf of the Conservancy to once again oppose this application. And I was thinking a lot about this as I've heard the commission's questions. And all text amendments and map amendments begin, I suppose, with self-interest of the applicant coming in and asking this commission to exercise your jurisdiction in amending the zoning regulations. But this application is so disrespectful to the planning process that this commission engages in terms of adopting regulations of general application and that benefit the town of Fairfield overall. Because at the end of the day, and as your questions kind of focused on, this whole application is motivated at developing 1477 Congress Street, that property which abuts on the Merritt Parkway. And as I listened to your questions, this text amendment proposes to be embedded in the DRD section in section 10, and yet so much of it is counter to the DRD regulations. I don't even know exactly where to begin. Just to address questions that you all asked. For example, this is, in theory, it is age-restricted housing development within the town of Fairfield along corridors which have been identified for their access and designed to a scale that is appropriate to the existing neighborhood context. Well, it really isn't. And the fact of the matter is that under our regulations, family is defined as either 5 unrelated individuals, or a family is people living together related by blood, marriage, or adoption plus 2 unrelated individuals. Meaning that in theory, one person living in this place in this proposed zone, only one person in each unit has to be 55 years old. So you get a wide spectrum, and admittedly, you might have an elderly couple living there, but at the other end of the spectrum, you could have 5 unrelated individuals living in a unit, only one of whom could be 55, the rest of whom could be teenagers, 20, 30, 40-year-olds, whatever it is. So I think we have to dispel a little bit of this sort of senior housing notion. And look, that's fine, because we do want to have a vast array of housing options in Fairfield, so I get it. But I don't like it being sold on kind of this golden image of providing this facility for the elderly, and providing that sort of thing, because it's a little bit. I won't characterize it, and the commission can draw your own conclusions. Spot zoning is alive and well. PDDs are a different device. I'm familiar with this. I argued the last case in the Supreme Court, Tillman versus Planning and Zoning Commission of the town of Shelton, which I lost with great grace. But I was suggesting that PDDs constituted, I shouldn't say that, I lost, but we were trying to, it was terrible. But the point was, in Shelton, they've adopted this PDD regulation, which says that you can rezone any property in the town of Easton, in the town of Shelton, and create a planned development district for any purpose. They have planned development districts, which are for 5 houses. Walmart is a planned development district. There are 176 separate planned development districts now in the town of Shelton. So anything goes in PDDs. And we suggested that that was spot zoning. And we were trying to overturn a case called Campion, which was a case in New Haven. And the Supreme Court ultimately found that the creation of PDDs is within the zoning power. But the point is, we don't have a PDD regulation in Fairfield, fortunately, for the benefit of our town. And spot zoning does exist, and it is, you know, we can argue about whether it applies here, but I just wanted to make that point. Okay. In the DRD regulation, it speaks to major collector roads for DRDs. This is within the DRD regulation, but here it refers to state highways, but not on the Merritt Parkway or Interstate 95. So I submitted some maps today and showing 1,500-foot radii. And in doing that map, the first thing I will note is it says within 1,500 feet of an on-ramp onto the Merritt Parkway. Try measuring distances from the on-ramp to the Merritt Parkway as a sort of mechanical measuring device. That's the first thing I will throw out. That's low-hanging fruit. Here, under the DRD regulation, you have to have 30 acres in a AAA zone to establish a DRD. The applicant here is saying, drop that down to just 1 acre. So you can drop this ARHD zone into a AAA zone, and they're asking you to reduce it down to 1 acre. Why? Because they want to develop 1477 Congress Street. As a matter of planning, I have never heard this commission. I pay attention to all of your amendments. I paid attention to your master plan deliberations. I never heard you say, ever, that we need to focus on creating senior, I'll go down the rabbit hole. We need to create senior housing near the Merritt Parkway. That's what we need to do. Congress Street needs more senior housing. Now, as an objective for the town, I think it would be a great idea if we expanded senior living opportunities in the town of Fairfield. But let's do it in a way that makes sense. What possible legislative reason could there be to enact an age-restricted living zone where you're restricting it basically to Congress Street? What legislative purpose is that? Why couldn't you have it near, for example, I-95 or the Post Road? Why couldn't you have this district in all these other areas of town? So I would think that a sort of more robust analysis than just looking at Congress Street and arguing over whether one parcel has septic capacity is, I think, a better way to plan, in my view. Now, septic versus sewer systems versus sanitary sewer systems. We have spent so much time and effort in this town establishing a sanitary sewer system. We've done a great job. And we are constantly expanding that system. We are adding to it. In a town that is densely populated, and we are densely populated at this point, sewer systems are far better than septic systems. That is not to say that septic systems on individual parcels can't work, but septic systems, sanitary sewer systems are professionally maintained. Septic systems can fail. Septic systems don't remove nitrogen from waste. And one of the things we are battling in Fairfield and all towns along Long Island Sound is the amount of nitrogen that we're discharging into Long Island Sound. In Fairfield, our sewer system treats nitrogen before it is released. Septic systems do not remove nitrogen. Septic systems are susceptible to heavy rain. And we have had a lot of storm events. So septic systems, when the ground gets saturated, don't work so well after constant rain. And when septic systems fail, they fail and they mobilize pollutants from the overflow. Here, this property is full of wetlands. why would we have a high density development or a higher density development on a site that is so wet and is in a flood zone? It just makes no sense. Let's talk about.
Sorry, how much, what's your ETA?
I've got a ways to go.
So
I made notes as you spoke.
Is there, no, that's fine. I mean, I figured you would have more than we'd be able to get through today. Is there a natural breaking?
This,
you know,
this would be, can I just throw one more thought
Yeah, go
out
ahead.
and then I'll rest? You recall, we have recently discussed 1477 and 4221 Black Rock Turnpike. And in those cases, Attorney Bellis came in both instances with conceptual plans. And it was sort of, I sensed that it was troublesome to the commission that you wanted to ask questions in exercising the planning function. You wanted to understand more about traffic conditions, septic, sanitary sewer conditions. And Attorney Bellis kept saying, well, this is only conceptual, so we're not nailing this down and we'll come back later. And so for me and for clients of mine to oppose these applications, it's like this soft progression where there's never sort of a hard place. And if you pass this regulation, then it's already in place. And as I argued on 4221, then the applicant walks in and says, hey, this is fully compliant with the ARHD that you've already approved. So I think that this sort of, we'll be back to you later with will be conceptual now, be back with hard plans later, is troublesome. And the whole point of code review is to kind of get comments that enable you to decide whether to invest going forward in a development and sort of what the commission is thinking and other town departments. So I'll just rest with that. And then I'll only need, and I'll work my presentation down to like 10 minutes at the max. That should be fine. I think everyone knows. They've heard enough of me and I've used enough oxygen tonight.
All right, so we will hold this open, beginning with Attorney Green. Any other members of the public that haven't had a chance to speak? I know we heard from some, and then wrap up with the rebuttal.
When would that be?
I would suggest the 12th of May, if that works for Attorney Russo, and does that work for you, Attorney Russo? Attorney Green? I believe that we have to close the public hearing by the 19th, which we don't have a meeting date on that date anyway.
So we'll have 90 and 154, John, that night, maybe, who knows? Also,
I'm sorry?
90 and 154 John Street, I'm showing that night.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
We'll be there anyway. Okay.
I'm here.
For the 12th, the applicant has asked that we open it on the 12th, but then continue it because he's waiting for his inland wetlands decision, which won't happen until after the 12th, is my understanding.
Great, thank you.
And then, okay, so we'll hold this hearing open until May 12th. And then I guess the next two items will have to also be on the 12th, right?
Where are you seeing that 9154 John is on is there like another like list of things we're discussing that's out there somewhere?
It was
What is that?
I
Oh,
had
it's already on
spoken
the
with
calendar?
Emmeline before and
Correct.
they were targeting, I think you had to open the application that night.
We have to open that application based on when it was initially submitted.
Oh.
The applicant didn't quite realize they needed inland wetlands review prior to coming to the commission. They opted to keep the application submitted instead of withdrawing it and resubmitting it. So we're still dealing with that active timeline.
Okay. All right, so we'll have a busy agenda that day. All right, thank you, everyone. We'll adjourn the meeting.
Are you speaking? You said members of the public, right? You
The
said.
next hearing, we're holding it open, so this is not
Okay,
closed.
Oh, you said.
It's held open.
Sorry.
until May 12th.